Hello, everyone.
Hello, Jevon.
Hey, Peter, how are you doing?
Good, and you?
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Um,
Should I hide my pretty face as well?
well, how it hit me, because I think I didn't realize I was actually on air.
Oh, okay. Are we
Jasmine, we can see you coming through. We haven't got visuals yet, but we can, it says connecting to audio. So we hope to have you through in a second. Jasmine, we now have visuals with you, so things are improving. Let us, in fact, try unmute you as well. I know you're sitting in the dark on your side of the world, so click the unmute button. Fantastic. We should be able to hear you now. You're unmuted, so talk to us.
Hi, everyone. Sorry about all the hassles.
No problem. Now let's just see. We can't really see much. Are you sitting in the dark there?
I've got a lamp next to me. That's the best
Okay. So just adjust the angle, because at the moment I think we're looking over your head. We can't actually see your face.
You don't want to see
Okay,
my face.
we're getting there. That's fantastic news. So we're going to, in fact, unmute everyone and bring them on.
We're not live yet.
We're live. We've got about 800 people busy watching us at the moment, and we're going to have an informal chat starting right now. So we're just turning on everyone's cameras.
Okay.
We're just asking Willem now to welcome. Well, good evening, everyone. It's been a little chaotic in Johannesburg. Welcome to, we have about 800 people who've tuned in and are watching us already. We're going to go live in about 15 minutes time. And we have been struggling with load shedding throughout Johannesburg. So Jasmine, you are sitting in the dark somewhere.
I have Mozambique prior, I have load shedding, and I've got ISIS. What life do I want?
But you're sitting there with a cigarette. You seem to have everything you need.
You know how expensive this is?
You know, as I understand the regulations, only tobacco is illegal. If you put something else in, it's fine.
Exactly. And you don't want to know what the price of a bottle of whiskey is. Oh, my word.
Ryan, where in the world are you joining us from?
Right. Well, I am in Florida for now, but normally I'm in New Jersey.
So you don't understand the difficulties that we have in South Africa with things like electricity. When you plan a webinar and suddenly big swathes of the country go into darkness and people lose their internet connectivity, we have all people sitting in the dark. Petter's been running around trying to get UPSs to try keep her internet going. These are some of the vagaries of living in the developing world.
Yeah, I was looking at the thread that we were on, and I was looking at all the communication back and forth. I'm like, my God, what unprecedented emergency is going on? And then I look at the text, and you guys are talking about the blackouts and all the problems. And you're like, oh, this happens all the time.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of those things that we get used to really, really easily. So, Willem, have you got electricity where you are?
Not at home, so I had to drive into the office. Fortunately, we have some electricity. Yeah.
Hi,
So we should
Hello.
really just appreciate it because those people north to us in Zimbabwe sometimes go about 15, 18 hours a day without electricity on a daily basis. At least we haven't had load shedding here in a few weeks. So Peter Monda, have you got electricity?
I do. I'm very grateful because apparently I'm not meant to have electricity. Greenside was supposed to go down, but it didn't. So I'm grateful.
How much did you pay for that?
Not as much as the whiskey.
You don't want to know. You don't want to know.
So Peter swapped a pack of cigarettes and 2 bottles of whiskey for electricity. It's the way we barter this side of the world.
Exactly.
Jevon, it looks like you're fully lit over there.
Yeah, I'm doing okay over here, thank God. It's like
Okay.
always a bit of a gamble, but yeah, full electricity and ready to go.
I don't know if anyone's ever called you lit before. I'm happy that I may be the first one.
Yeah, no, normally they ask me to switch off my camera, so that's it. Fine.
Well, Dina Diamond, yesterday was in fact your birthday. And you
Happy birthday.
seem to have gotten younger and younger since we last did a webinar together, which was last week.
Do you think it's the lighting?
Whatever it is, it works.
But sorry, did you just flash some nails with nail polish on?
I did. I have to tell you, after months of not being at the salon, I broke down and as a little gift to myself, took myself and my daughters off to have our nails done. Masks all sorted, hygiene protocols observed, but had my nails done. And they were very happy and grateful for it.
So Ryan, you wouldn't know, but here in South Africa, when we start political meetings, everyone needs to be greeted by name and title and welcomed. And what we now have instead is you say all protocol observed, and then you can skip over everything. So the fact that Dina tells us that all sanitization protocols were observed means we can skip over the details of actually what she went through.
Wow, that's about the most formal thing I've ever heard.
We're a very formal nation. We lost our colonial ties, but I see your side of the world has done the exact same thing. And we are now trying really hard to decolonize and dress appropriately. So, Danny Kadar, you're on controls this evening.
I am. Very exciting. Very exciting. I think I'm getting the hang of it. Yes, I'm going to be the technical man tonight.
Fantastic. Very much looking forward to it. For those people who don't know Danny Kadar is the CEO of the South African Jewish Report, and he's going to be tweaking all the bells and whistles and dialing back all the dials tonight, and he's on technical support. So Danny, thank you so much. Thank you for everything that you're doing for us. Much, much appreciated. And joining us as well, just before we get on to talk to him, is Alan Nossel, who's going to be talking to us about a major project that's happening on Sunday. And Alan will talk to us. We'll talk briefly now, but we'll talk shortly after 8 o'clock. But for those people who are joining us, and I see, for example, we've got over 1,000 people who've logged in already on Zoom, and we're going to go live in about 11, 12 minutes time. And we would, while you're watching us, please tell us where in the world you're watching us from. Please use the chat functionality to actually tell us that. And hello to Aubrey and Etienne, who are watching us in Toronto. Lovely to see you guys, and love from my parents. And lovely to see that you've tuned in to another one of our webinars tonight. That little earthquake was me knocking my drink all over my floor of my TV room.
That's what happens, Jasmine, and she wastes good alcohol.
And there was no alcohol in it even. Otherwise, I
You
would
lying?
be wandering
You
around the floor,
lying?
licking the wooden floors.
Lucky the camera doesn't stretch that far.
So I see we have people in Washington, D.C. and in Bantry Bay and in Milnerton in Cape Town. So lovely to see all of you guys. A huge welcome. And Alan Nossel, welcome to you.
Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to present probably what's a bit of a crazy project, but quite a, I hope, exciting one. And we'll see what the outcome is in the next 2 weeks, actually. So just to give can I give you the background of what
you can? You're going to tell us again just after 8 o'clock very briefly, but we've got a few minutes. So you're dressed up in your sporting gear at the moment. So tell us what you're going to be talking about just after 8 o'clock.
This is how I go to work. This is my work gear. So, but it is my sports gear as well. So yeah, so we've launched a sort of like what we hope is a fairly unique project. It's called the JJJ. Okay, the JJJ just conveniently stands for the Jabra, Josie to Jerusalem Ultra Triathlon. Just to start it off, you know, in the beginning of lockdown in my driveway, with my family and I running up and down we have a 100-meter driveway, so we were perfectly set up to practice 100-meter sprints. We started off running up and down the driveway, my wife, my kids, and we started, and eventually, after 2 to 3 weeks, we managed to get ourselves a cumulative marathon. That's between all of us. We picked a day after training a little bit, and we got a marathon together, split it up depending upon age and etc. And we managed to put that together. A week after that, we managed to rope our neighbors in, and we got a proper ultra marathon. We got a comrades marathon there, and the next step. Everyone tries to out to your last achievement was to try and go for the real ultramarathon, and that was a result of my holiday in Israel being cancelled in July. I couldn't get there by plane, so I thought with a lot of help from a lot of people, maybe we'll get there by foot. And I approached a highly talented person called Ilan Herman, who is amazing when it comes to putting together presentations on video, etc. And Ilan put together a conceptual presentation of getting to Jerusalem by canoe, by swimming, by cycling, by walking, and ultimately landing up at the Kotel, which was like unbelievable. It was just so creative. He captured the what I was thinking in my head so well on a video. And I showed that to Ronnie Kaplan, the chairman of West Street Shul. Thought it was a good idea to get the Shul involved and maybe use it as an opportunity to get some funding into the Shul, seeing as no one had been around, and the expenses are still happening, but the income obviously is a lot harder to come by. And Ronnie loved the idea and gave me a thumbs up to go for it. My thing that I was short of then was a sponsor. Fortunately, I've got my brother who and I run a company together. We've got a brand called Jabra that just so happens to be perfectly aligned to the cause. It's a high-end audio brand selling Bluetooth headsets, really good products, and we managed to tap into the funding from Jabra and get the T-shirts knocked up and some kits and make it a bit of so we could offer our supporters and people who are contributing something in return for their effort to put some money into our cause. The aim of the event, cumulatively, to do 9,191 kilometers. Which is the distance from Johannesburg to Jerusalem. It can be done on foot, treadmill, walking, running, stationary bike, canoeing, or even swimming. So we have participation from Canada, Australia, Israel, UK, Rwanda, and of course South Africa. And of course from West Street, we've got quite a lot of participation. And then Ilan's video was so eye-catching that 2 organizations caught on to it. One was called Tokev, which is an amazing organization, injured Israeli soldiers who took up running and sport to try and overcome their handicap. And they loved the event and they're participating in it from Israel to help us get the kilometers up. And Telfed, which is the Aliyah angle of the South African Jewish community that are in Israel, And
So, Alan,
we
you're
had-
going into a lot of details here, and we're going to talk about it just after 8 o'clock. But the bottom line, the unterste Schure, if I
Yeah.
want to do a few kilometers, how do I actually do a few kilometers?
Okay, because we're opening it up from tomorrow, which is the 14th of August to the 31st. You would have to WhatsApp me. I'll give you my number, and I'll put it together from a WhatsApp, because it's all driven on WhatsApp. I mean, you could do an email, but it's probably at this stage because
Okay, Alan, too much detail. You're going to have 2 minutes just after 8 o'clock. You're going to tell us exactly what we're going to do. But remember, short, sharp, and 2 minutes, because
was I far too long there? Was it far too long?
That was about 7 minutes, and you hadn't gotten to the bottom line yet. So
but you gave us the background.
But you gave us the background. You're going to have 2 minutes shortly after 8 o'clock to give us.
So I'm going to have to speed that up a lot. So that's what you're telling me.
Can I say you're going to have to talk slowly and just leave out all the irrelevancies?
Perhaps just read the article that was written in the Jewish Report.
Well, everyone should read the article.
You know what?
In the Jewish Report.
I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to cut I can get it. I'll get down to the. I've got you.
Okay.
Good that we did the dry run.
Okay.
And,
okay. Enough, Alan. Enough. We're talking to everyone. We're going to go live in 6 minutes' time. And a huge welcome to everyone who's joined us. Nice to see we have a contingent who've joined us from Parys in the Free State tonight. Colin, you and all your cronies, lovely to see you on board. The people in Sea Point tell us that it's really, really cold in Sea Point. We're sorry to hear that. And we see Cliff, you're joining us from Washington, D.C. We have Cameron Green in Somerset West. Cam, great to see and speak to you again. People in Port Elizabeth and people all over the place. So a huge welcome. I see we have people in Fourways who've joined us. Did you see big news today? Peter Crossmonda, your newspaper went out last night, but big news today. There's a normalization in relationships between Israel and the United Arab Emirates.
That is fantastic. That's fantastic. Let's hope that South Africa follows their lead.
I think we've got a long way. Long way to go. Welcome to the people in Plumstead, in Durban. I see we have people in Carmel, California. We've got people coming to us from Lyndhurst, from New Rochelle in New York, from Somerset West. Lovely to see you all. And we're going to kick off in exactly 5 minutes' time. So, Dina, what has been occupying your time since the last webinar that we did?
Well, Howie, since the last webinar, I'm always occupied by the next webinar. So on Saturday evening, I'm so excited to tell you that we'll be running a Fashion 2020 webinar. So for all those people who have been in their pajamas and their gym wear for the last 6 months, I wanted to tell you that now is time to make a change. Things are starting to happen. Things are starting to open up. You may actually have to leave your house at some point, or actually give more of yourself on screen. So we have got 2 of South Africa's premier designers. We have got David Tlale and I have gone completely back, Johan Kutsia, who are beyond phenomenal. Both had shows at Fashion Week in South Africa, Fashion Week in Paris, in New York, in Nigeria. They are absolute global players. They've dressed the top celebrities in South Africa. He has even dressed Oprah Winfrey when she was here for the Good Citizen concert. He has dressed Kourtney Kardashian. I mean, if you can dress Kourtney Kardashian, I think you're qualified to dress the whole of South Africa. So those are the wonderful designers that we will have on our panel, giving us some hints and trends coming on to season for the rest of 2020. We will also have the previous editor of Marie Claire, Aspasia Karas, who is the current editor for Sunday Times in the lifestyle section. And she'll be giving us a view of where she thinks everything is going and also give us some greater insights. We will also have wonderful tips and trends from brands like Fila, boutiques. Also bespoke by Donna will be giving us insights into where jewelry is going. It's not as simple as you think. Diamonds do make a girl's best friend, but they need additional friends. So that will be Saturday evening, and that will be fantastic.
I've got a question to you.
Yes, Jasmine.
I want to know, can you promise me by watching that webinar, I will look like a fashion model afterwards?
Absolutely. We do
I look at my, no.
I think it's your lighting, Jasmine.
We're going live in 2 minutes time, but if you deal in the murky underworld of terrorism, how do you look the most appropriate? First of all, Jasmine, you turn off your lights. You turn off your lights, Jasmine. That's the one thing to do. You light up a cigarette. You make sure there are clouds of smoke around you. You take probably a glass of whiskey. And as you describe that, the lights go on. Your electricity is back. If you want to join us from your laptop, you can do that as well. Or alternatively, we're very happy for you on your phone. But it's nice to have your electricity back. The time is 8 o'clock. We're going live in exactly 2 minutes time. Our Zoom is in fact completely full. We have 1,000 logins on Zoom, which is about 2,200 people. That is now completely full. So if anyone asks you how to get in, please send them through to our YouTube channel. We are broadcasting this on YouTube as well. And Dina, we had an amazing Saturday night where we narrated the story of Sylvia Rafael, the South African Mossad agent recruited by the Mossad, who was one of the most successful spies and in fact assassins in the Mossad's history. But did you see the numbers? We had 15,000 people watching that Zoom webinar live, and another 7,000 people who subsequently watched it on YouTube as well. So we've had an audience of about 22,000 people watching that Zoom webinar. And we have no doubt that tonight will be similar sort of numbers, because I think people are so interested in the topics that we're actually going to be covering this evening.
But what if they don't like my message?
You know something? That's okay, because here we want to talk the truth. So, Jasmine, my sense is you are the one person who doesn't mince their words. You are going to tell it like it is.
Yes.
That's why I'm always in shit. That's why.
You know, but that's why everyone wants to hear from you, because there's no nonsense. There's no beating around the bush. We want to know exactly where we stand.
Okay, so I have your permission. Chatham House rules applies. I don't get arrested.
Look, we have no idea where you are, but at least you have lights. The time has just gone 2 minutes past 8. A huge welcome to the thousands and thousands of people who are watching us this evening. It is a great pleasure on behalf of the South African Jewish Report to welcome you all this evening. This is in fact the 44th webinar that we've done since the start of lockdown, and we've addressed some really important issues. We've looked at healthcare, we've looked at psychological well-being, we've looked at nutrition, and we've looked at things like fitness. We've played some games, we've run the amazing race, but we've also tackled some real issues. We've looked at issues of racism and gender-based violence. And today we are looking at another incredibly important issue, the issue of ISIS and whether ISIS has in fact made its way to South Africa. You will notice on about the 23rd of July, the South African police raided a small holding in Kliprivier near Verulum, just outside Johannesburg. And in that raid in Kliprivier, they uncovered ISIS flags, they uncovered guns, they uncovered vehicles, and they were able, in the arrest that they did, I understand 5 people were arrested and more people are in fact on the run at the moment, but they've managed to link that cell which had kidnapped people to the shootings in Mary Fitzgerald Square and in Melville on New Year's Eve in Johannesburg. One of the people arrested in Kliprivier was responsible or part of the group of people who got arrested for the attacks on the mosque in Verulum just outside Durban. There seems to be this enormous web of ISIS activities in South Africa that all seem to have converged on this one location in Kliprivier that the police raided on the 23rd. And that's why we thought it would be such an important topic that in fact we started addressing right here tonight to understand whether ISIS was in fact in South Africa. So a huge welcome to all of you. As we said, this is the 44th webinar of the South African Jewish Report. And before we begin, we would like to thank Mantis. Mantis have in fact supported so many of our webinars by sponsoring webinars. They're of course in the security game. This is exactly fits in perfectly with the sort of stuff that in fact Mantis are doing. So to Mantis, a huge thank you. And Danny Kedar, you're on controls tonight. Thank you for everything you're doing for us this evening. Danny is in fact CEO of the South African Jewish Report newspaper. Danny, we'd like to hear a word from Mantis. Thank you, Danny, and thank you to Mantis Security as well. A few reminders. First of all, the South African Jewish Report newspaper is available. It's available in your Pick and Pay, your Spar, your Nord hypermarket, most of the hypermarkets around the place. Don't forget to pick up a copy. And if you're unable to pick up a copy, you can go online to www.sajr.co.za and you can either download the entire edition on www.sajr.co.za, or alternatively, you can look at each of the articles. Peter, you're the editor of the newspaper. Tell us about your lead story this week.
So our lead story looks at the numbers of deaths within the Jewish community that people have died from COVID-19. And it sounds like just a number, 106, but it's a huge percentage of our population of this community. But the reality is that because we have a community where we have so many elderly people, it has affected us so badly. The average age of people who died is 82.7. So we really are looking at a lot of elderly people who have passed away. It's really worth a read. That's just our lead. And there's lots of other fascinating stories.
So in fact, Peter, we are 11 times the national average in terms of death.
Yes.
And that could be described by two things. Number one, it could be described by the age of our population, but it also could be described by the fact that we're accurately reporting figures, because we don't seem to have an excess death figure. And South African excess deaths is about 4 times the number of the reported COVID cases. So in fact, it may be that our community is reporting accurately, but that the country is not. Certainly a very important article, very important read. So if you haven't seen the South African Jewish Report this week, strongly urge you to pick up a copy, either a hard copy, or go to www.sajr.co.za and download a copy. Also, please don't forget that we're in the process and we're nearing the end of our nominations for Jewish Achiever Awards for this year. So if you haven't yet nominated anyone for the 9 categories for Jewish Achiever Awards, please go to www.jaa2020.co.za and please nominate now for the 9 awards that we have for Jewish Achiever Awards. Once again tonight, a huge thank you to Pam Roberts. Pam Roberts has been editing videos for this evening. Literally probably 30, 40 hours of work have gone into editing videos for tonight. So Pam, a huge thank you to you for everything that you've done. You will see tonight the amount of work that has gone into this. Absolutely, absolutely astounding. So huge thank you to you and to Danny Kedar, as we said, who is on controls this evening. Dina Diamond, tell us about the panel on Saturday evening.
So as I said earlier, Saturday evening, we have got an unbelievable panel coming up called Fashion 2020, SA's top designers. We have got David Tlale, Johan Kutsia, top designers who have been at Fashion Week in New York, in Paris, that have dressed celebrities from Oprah to literally Kerry McGregor even, Bonang, and a lot of international additional ones like Kourtney Kardashian. So they are seriously, seriously known in the fashion world. We've got the editor, from the lifestyle section at the Sunday Times, who's also the editor-in-chief at Marie Claire at one point. So she definitely knows her stuff to give us a lot of great views and a lot of great insights. We've got Fila and Nikki that are going to come on and tell us all about their brands, where they're going, what the trends are. We're going to give you trends in jewelry by Bespoke by Donna. So we have got a packed lineup, but really one that we feel is completely needed, where people have potentially been in their gym wear and their pajamas for the last couple of weeks or months. Maybe it's time to refresh, to reinvigorate, re-energize, and start focusing on fashion once again. And that is exactly what we will be doing. We'll also be getting Cliff's insights on paint colors. So even like that, where that fashion color comes in. So it really is inclusive, and it's going to be just a fantastic lineup, and really unique to be able to get these people on board.
Fantastic. Dina, thank you so much. We'll see you on Saturday evening. Thank you for joining us this evening. But one of the things that your father is involved in with West Street Shul is, in fact, this amazing race from Johannesburg to Jerusalem. And we're joined by Alan Nossel. Alan, tell us about what, in fact, you're planning. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Okay, so the event is called the JJJ, stands for the Jabra Josie to Jerusalem Ultra Triathlon. Target is to reach 9,191 kilometers, which is the distance from Johannesburg to Jerusalem. Cumulatively, with a joint team effort from the whole community in South Africa and any other person who would like to join us, non-Jewish, Jewish, etc. And we're very happy for any help we can get. The objective was to raise funds for West Street Shul. A video was put together by Ilan Herman from Soul Sport to capture the event, and he did this poster here that you can see, which is gives you the full picture, including a runner in Israel who happened to have running on one leg, runs a sub 3-hour marathon from an organization called Tokev. And anyone who wants to do something that's really fun over the next 2 weeks, I guarantee you, we're going to load you onto a WhatsApp group. You'll be able to see what everybody's doing, and you'll be able to be a participant and a spectator at the same time, and really get a full fun out of an event, especially during a time when we're lacking a bit of things to do. So I urge you to get involved and to have some fun with us. And we welcome anyone who wants to come to me. Please WhatsApp me on 083 273 7876, 083 273 7876, and I'll load you on board the opportunity. Thank you for the opportunity to present.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Lovely to see you, and best of luck. And we'll see you when you arrive in Jerusalem.
Thank you.
Fantastic. So just a final thing just before we begin, don't forget at the bottom of your screen, you have a number of different buttons. If you'd like to chat, we'd love to hear from you. Chat along in the chat section, chat to your fellow people, comment as we go along. Also, people busy watching us on YouTube as well, don't forget to use the chat section on YouTube. This isn't a solo performance. This is a community event, so we'd actually really love to hear from you. If you have any things that you would like to ask the panel at all, you'll notice as well there's a Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, and that Q&A button will in fact allow you to ask questions to any members of the panel at all. So so we certainly urge you to use the Q&A button. And with that, we're having our final advert before we begin. Danny, please play us the advert from Switch Smart. Sorry, Danny, I don't think your audio is connected. You need to click on the share computer audio. We're not hearing anything from you. Thank you, Danny. Now, Peter Crossmonder, you have
Yes.
gathered together a very illustrious panel this evening. Tell us who all these people are on your panel.
I certainly have, and these really are the experts in South Africa. Internationally. Jevon Greenblatt is the director of the community service organization, better known as CSO in Johannesburg, that's responsible for the security of the Jewish community. Jasmine Opperman is a terrorist analyst at the Armed Conflict Location and Event Data Project, better known as ACLID. Willem is the senior training coordinator on terrorism and explosive-related incidents at the Institute for Security Studies. And Ryan Mauro, who is our international guest, is the director of the Clarion Intelligence Network, an international group that tracks extremist activity throughout the world. Thank you, all of you, for joining us. It's going to be a fascinating evening.
So in fact, in order to get us on the road, we've prepared a few videos that we're going to be showing along the journey this evening. And we want to start just on a background, and then we're going to come to Ryan to talk about, I think, Ryan, a lot of people don't understand this world of fundamentalist terror. Who is Al-Qaeda? Who is ISIS? How do they fit together? So we've got a 2-minute background information piece, and then we're going to come and chat to you about that as well.
But to understand ISIS, it helps to tell the story of its rise. In 1979, the Soviet Union invades Afghanistan. Young men from the Middle East flock in to join the rebels. Many see it as a religious struggle, and some develop extremist views. Among them is a well-educated young Saudi named Osama bin Laden. Also in Afghanistan is a semi-literate former street thug from Jordan, calls himself Abu Musab al-Zarqawi. They do not get along and never will, but will create the groups we today know as Al-Qaeda and as ISIS.
So how do you explain the bad blood between ISIS and Al-Qaeda, the parent organization that it now shuns? One common short answer is that ISIS's tactics are so brutal as to be repulsive, even to the masterminds of the 9/11 attacks. But that simplification ignores two significant points. First, that ISIS and its predecessors have targeted Shiite Muslims and even fellow Sunnis in ways that Al-Qaeda's core thought counterproductive. And second, that ISIS has rejected a key ideological point that forms the basis for the war against the West and Arab autocrats espoused by Osama bin Laden and his successor Ayman al-Zawahiri. Both organizations ultimately want the same thing, a pure Islamic state purged of what each of them views as the corrupting influence of the West. That purified state will be ruled by a caliph, as the leader of the Muslim world was called in the early days of the religion. But ISIS is on a less patient timetable than Al-Qaeda. ISIS is taking a shorter-term view, arguing that bold and bloody action to drive out the impure could more quickly produce a caliphate that harkens back to its views of Muslim practices in Islam's founding era.
Islamic State is a state-building enterprise. They're trying to create a real state, not some postmodern, virtual, Al-Qaeda style thing that only exists in your head. They're trying to create something that looks like a real state.
On June 29th, ISIS declared a caliphate, an Islamic nation representing the world's Muslim faithful, an entity that recognizes no political borders.
As you can see, this is the so-called border. We don't recognize it and we will never recognize it.
For this ISIS propaganda video, militants bulldoze the Syrian-Iraq border. An ISIS recruit from Chile is calling on Muslims everywhere to join them.
By declaring the Khilafah, the Caliphate, they did something nobody else has done. The implication of this in the minds of the traditional Salafi believers is that they have a religious obligation to pledge loyalty. But even if 1% of the Salafis do that, you're talking about tens of thousands.
Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi emerged on July 4th, declaring himself caliph. He called on Muslims to immigrate to the territory his group has seized in Iraq and Syria to help build an Islamic State.
After Baghdadi's sermon, thousands more jihadists flocked to Syria and Iraq.
ISIS's goal is more audacious than anything imagined by Al-Qaeda. Thousands of Muslims, mostly from the Middle East and from Europe, flock to join the group. Some join for religious reasons, but many are just disillusioned or angry and feel that ISIS offers them answers and a purpose. Eventually, ISIS will lose its state, but ISIS will respond by reverting to what it was before as Al-Qaeda in Iraq, an insurgency and a terror group still capable of horrifying violence. And in that form, it could be around for years.
Peter, the floor is yours.
Great, thank you very much. So I'd like to ask Ryan, who I just discovered has to leave a little early, but I'd like to ask him as an international expert, what is ISIS and what makes them stand out from other terrorist organizations?
Basically, the Islamic State, ISIS, presented itself as the answer as to why Al-Qaeda was losing. So if you're a jihadist terrorist group and you're claiming that you are following Allah's will and Allah is blessing you, but then you're not successful, what does that say about your claim? I mean, it debunks you, especially because in the Muslim world, especially the fundamentalist area, the way that you tell if someone is correct about their interpretation or not correct is whether they win or lose. And so that's why there was some gravitation towards Al-Qaeda after 9/11, because they were winning. That's why when the Islamic State declared a caliphate, you had a flock of jihadists joining them and people who were radicalized because they said to themselves, well, I thought they were wrong before, but they're winning. They appear to have Allah's blessing, and so I'm going to join that group. And so then when they start losing, though, then what's the conclusion? That Allah is judging you. And so you have this back and forth between Al-Qaeda and ISIS about, you know, who is Allah blessing, who is Allah judging. And that's why it's so important for people to understand that just grabbing a small piece of land by Al-Qaeda or ISIS or another group, why that can so quickly spin out of control, because then the jihadist world, many of whom may not be active, will say, okay, that's the group I need to join. Now the end times are happening. I need to play a part in that. So that's what sets ISIS apart, is really that really just a matter of success. They've declared a state, and they also said the reason Al-Qaeda was losing is because they weren't vicious enough, that they were sellouts. And so when ISIS was exceptionally vicious, particularly to other Muslims, and then was successful, then a lot of jihadist-minded people said, okay, well, ISIS must be correct.
So Ryan, explain to us, why in fact do we find ISIS in other places of the world? If their objective is to establish a caliphate in the Middle East, why do we find them in places like South Africa or the rest of Africa? What is their aim, and who are they targeting, and why are they doing this?
Sure. So the people they're targeting is basically anyone who isn't them. Now, what is going to change and is starting to change is a willingness to cooperate with other groups, including Al-Qaeda. I mean, they're perfectly willing to kill each other. But now that it's known that Baghdadi got harbor from an Al-Qaeda linked group, then a lot of ISIS supporters are going to say to themselves, well, if Baghdadi did it, then I guess when it makes sense tactically to ally with Al-Qaeda, then I will do so. And in fact, some of the online communication that we've been watching, we see this. In fact, you'll see ISIS members referencing bin Laden, al-Awlaki, Al-Qaeda leaders, as justification for their actions in the name of ISIS. So you see a cross-pollination. The reason it happens anywhere is because the belief has a global appeal, unfortunately. You can have someone who's living in his mom's basement in Canada who says, okay, well, I believe that this religious interpretation is correct. And then their first priority is to join the established caliphate, which has been destroyed but can come back. And that's because they have this utopian dream. It's basically their version of Disney World, where everything's just going to be wonderful. And any negative reporting about life under ISIS is just propaganda from the Jews and the Satanists. And that's really how they look at it. And that's why you've had some people, particularly the women, who go over to the caliphate or wherever ISIS is running an area, and then they go, oh, well, this was a mistake, because they're in that echo chamber. So that's why you have people around the world who are into it. But what will happen is that they feel that they are likely to get caught trying to join that caliphate. Then the orders are that you're still obligated to act in furtherance of the cause. And how do you do that? You provide support to operatives overseas, or ideally, if you really are a sinful person and you want to get rid of your sin, die carrying out an attack where you live if you can't join the caliphate. And I'll see this in a lot of transcripts of the wiretaps of ISIS operatives around the world. The predominant theme I see, like the common denominator, is not just that ISIS is wonderful, it's this belief that Allah does not love them, Allah will not accept them, they've sinned, they've gotten drunk, they've done these horrible things in their life, and they don't know how to guarantee their entry into paradise. And the answer offered to them is go to the most extreme measure possible to demonstrate your obedience to Allah, which is dying in violent jihad.
And Ryan, how are they funded? Who funds them? Who keeps them going?
They're also a mafia. I mean, most of these terrorist groups are also a mafia. So there will be small donations coming in from overseas, but primarily it'll be criminal activity. If they govern an area, they'll enlist like a tax and make people pay it, or they'll just steal money because they have cited certain interpretations where they'll say, okay, well, if you're in conflict with a certain entity or they have stolen your land, then you can basically take whatever you want from them. Baghdadi famously had a Rolex when he was alive, and he made his grand announcement of the caliphate, and the video went out, which is something he was mocked for in some circles. So they can take their money by stealing it, by taxing people, all sorts of criminal enterprises, including selling stolen archaeological pieces. They've made money from oil revenue, including deals with the Assad regime in the past, even though they were fighting, that there can be business deals. And they also do have some donors in places like Qatar and Turkey and elsewhere who fund them. And the UN says that even today in their battered state, they still have about $100 million available to
them. How do they recruit? And what kind of person are they looking for?
Sure. So, I mean, they're willing to take just about anybody. Al-Qaeda, if they wanted to have a member, like someone who actually joined their ranks as opposed to just a supporter somewhere who might do something, Al-Qaeda used to have like a vetting process. ISIS, not so much. There's some vetting for security purposes, but they're more willing, it appears, to take on mentally ill, take on someone who doesn't really know much about their faith, all sorts of things. Someone who's done a lot of sin in the past, because the whole idea of joining is to cleanse yourself of sin. So ISIS really kind of accepts anyone, and then they have stricter vetting depending on what it is exactly they want to do. A lot of their membership are new recruits. There's really two types of members you'll encounter, and this is common to all the jihadist groups. And I think we make a mistake if we separate them all, because they merge, jump from one to the other. They're all kind of the same thing. The first is someone who is, excuse me, someone who is a bit learned in their faith. They came from a religious family. Maybe they went to university and took some Islamic related classes or a high school, and they're learned. And so they have a foundation that is a bit radical, but not quite Al-Qaeda or ISIS. But then something happens and they jump over the edge into the most extreme category. But most of them actually seem to be new converts or people who aren't converts, but didn't really get into their faith except for recently. And almost always, despite the media focusing on this concept of a lone wolf, they're always talking to some type of friend or mentor online who is answering their questions, because let's not mistake ourselves into thinking that these guys are robots who are just brainwashed from the beginning. No, they actually do go through a process where there's critical questions asked, just like any of us would ask if we're presented with some crazy idea. But then they get their answers from a mentor. They develop a social circle in person or online otherwise. And then they are radicalized into these different things. They've also had professional flirters, like people who go out and flirt online in order to recruit people. And so that's been a common tactic as well. Someone looking for a wife or a husband, and they act as like a jihadi dating service.
That's crazy.
So Ryan, in this entire thing, you described it almost like a business, but it looks like it's more of a franchise business than actual branches. And many of their recruits are franchisees who adhere to maybe the general ideology. What level of support in attacks is the head office almost giving these people on the ground? Are they employees, for want of a better word, soldiers, or are they lone wolves?
They are, when you look at the loose instructions that come from the top, there may not be command and control necessarily. I mean, in many cases there is, particularly with between the leaders of the affiliates and then going to the main leaders in Iraq and Syria. There is command and control that way, but it doesn't trickle all the way down. They are perfectly happy for someone to act on their own accord if it makes sense security-wise. And it's also still, like, you don't see a lot of dissent, at least that I've detected online. So within the branches of Al-Qaeda, you did see some dissent over time, particularly as they were losing. There was disagreement even over carrying out the 9/11 attacks. There were some theological disagreements in there. So far, I'm not seeing any real division between ISIS and the different affiliates. When there's an order that goes out about pledging allegiance to the new leader, to following his orders, following a specific interpretation or doing something, you don't see a lot of debate about that. So they are more cultish than Al-Qaeda, even though I would put them both in the category of cults, gangs, terrorists, whatever negative terminology you want.
So Ryan, you say you're not an expert on, in fact, Africa at all, but ISIS and Al-Qaeda do manifest themselves in Africa as well. And we do have some experts on the panel. So we'd like to watch a very quick video of what in fact we're seeing in Africa at the moment.
The Sahel is an arid belt of land that stretches across north-central Africa. It is predominantly Muslim, poor and badly governed, the perfect conditions for extremist groups to thrive. Many of these terrorist groups pledge their loyalties to IS or Al-Qaeda. The deadliest terrorist factions in the world are in northeastern Nigeria. Boko Haram promotes a version of Islam which forbids Muslims to take part in any activity associated with Western society. In 2017, it used at least 135 child suicide bombers. ISWAP, a splinter group of Boko Haram, is now the biggest IS-affiliated group in the world. The number of violent incidents involving jihadist groups in Africa has increased by 300% since 2010.
To understand how these terrorist groups got to Africa and why they're so successful there, it helps to start in Nigeria. It was here that a radical Islamist group called Boko Haram took shape and turned violent in 2009. They started razing villages, slaughtered men and women, and kidnapped children who were forced to carry out suicide attacks.
In April, the group kidnapped more than 200 schoolgirls from their classrooms. Some of the girls were reportedly sold into marriages with the militants.
Within a few years, the group killed nearly 25,000 people and was on track to become the deadliest terror group in the world, eventually surpassing ISIS.
The hostage crisis in the upscale Westgate Mall is ongoing at this hour.
Dramatic new footage has emerged of the moment killer gunmen brought terror to the Westgate shopping mall in Nairobi. Kenya initially thought up to 15 attackers were involved, but just 4 in total appear on these CCTV pictures. Somali Islamic militant group Al-Shabab says it was behind last month's attack, in which at least 67 people died.
As long as there are places with poverty, conflicts, and no government, terrorist groups will be here.
Okay, so after seeing that, I'd like to open to the whole panel. What is the difference between ISIS, Boko Haram, Al-Qaeda, Al-Shabab, and the other terrorist organizations in Africa? This is open to anyone. Whoever wants to speak, go for it. Jasmine, Willem.
I think if I can come in there. we have to look at where we stand with Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State today to answer that question. And Ryan has referred to that. If we look at the Islamic State to start off with, we must have seen a significant change in their tactics. They have adjusted. They have adjusted their tactics. They've got a dedicated committee of ideologues taking lead in the organization. And it's top ideologues. We're not talking low-level ideologues here. But what we are seeing is that their fundamental objective is global reach. That is to say, we admit to the failure of the caliphate. Now, what does it mean for its supporting structures? At this point in time, ideological alignment to the extremist ideology of ISIS is not so much the overriding priority. Where they see opportunity and where they see groups that can give them an opportunity to show and expand that or project that message, as in Mozambique, a classic case, they use that opportunity. But if you look at the Islamic State West Africa, you look at Boko Haram, you look at the Islamic State Greater Sahara, we have pledges of allegiance made to the leader of the Islamic State. So there is clearly an alignment to the extremist ideology of the Islamic State that cannot be denied. Whereas, for instance, in Mozambique, it's a completely different set of rules at play. But yet the Islamic State is willing to use it to project its presence in Southern Africa. And that
So are you saying that they're all linked?
At an extremist ideological level, if we talk Boko Haram, Islamic State West Africa, if we talk Islamic State Greater Sahara, which falls actually under Islamic State West Africa and their propaganda material, they are linked at an ideological level, that there's levels of cooperation taking place between those groups in that region cannot be denied, yes.
Okay, so, but on one level they are enemies, and on another level they are linked. Willem, what do you think about this? What are your thoughts?
Yes, I agree with Jasmine.
Yeah.
We will see that the rise of ISIS put Al-Qaeda a bit on the back foot because of the prominence and what happened there. And so we see that in 2013, they brought out a paper where they had sat down and they re-strategized and they looked at how they are going to operate from there on and what their focus will be. And we see their focus, and if you look at Africa and you look at governance in Africa and the type of governance we have, we see that it's fertile ground for these people to thrive. They decided they're going to focus on corruption. They're going to focus on areas where the governments do not honor their social contract with the population, where there's a lack of service delivery, etc., etc. That is why you will see that, for instance, in Somalia, Al-Shabab, in the areas that they control, they've got an excellent counter or anti-malaria campaign, where they really fight malaria very effectively, which government is not doing, which government is failing to do where they are into control. So what they decided, they would latch onto these people, to their grievances, to the groups that are separately there, and then they focus on the grievances of the people. And what is important, they try to do better than the reigning government in order to incite people to join them. And that is what we see. We look at northern Mozambique. Jasmine will be able to speak more on that. We see that there has been for many years, Cabo Delgado is also, Cabo means a cape, it's also the forgotten cape referred to in many documents, where people are 1,500 miles from Maputo, where they do not have what is happening, they do not have the service delivery that they need, the government is not performing, they feel that they are neglected, and then these people move in and they are opportunists to take advantage of that.
So we're going to get onto Mozambique. Can we just kind of paint a picture of who operates in Africa and where, and how they operate?
Okay, in Africa, you've got various groups. In West Africa, you've got various aligned groups. Some of the groups are aligned. JNIM is aligned with Al-Qaeda, where you've got other groups like Boko Haram that are aligned to ISIS. But what is very interesting, and Ryan mentioned that these people, even though they are enemies in some instances, they work together. We saw in the Sahel, especially in Mali, where the two groups, Al-Qaeda affiliated groups and your ISIS affiliated group, actually work together to occupy swaths of land, even though they have got their differences. Where on the contrary, in Somalia, you see that Al-Qaeda or Al-Shabab declared war on ISIS, and they pushed ISIS out to the north towards Puntland. So that is a difference between the two. Here in South Africa and in Mozambique, we see that Jasmine mentioned that they are affiliated with ISIS, but it's a different model that we see and we notice, for instance, in Nigeria with Boko Haram.
May I just come in there, please? Sorry, Howard.
No problem.
I think we must make a clear distinction here. At top ideological level, there's entrenched hatred between Al-Qaeda and ISIS. There is no way that those two groups will ever assimilate into one. But what Willem has referred to is important. At an operational boots on the ground level, where opportunity presents itself, it will for that moment collaborate. Because what we're seeing in Mali as well is intense violence and conflict between Islamic State Greater Sahara and JNIM, and even captured in Al-Naba for the first time that this conflict is taking place. So we have to make that distinction, and we must not think for one moment that these two groups are getting closer at an ideological senior level. It is entrenched hatred going back to al-Baghdadi and what happened in Syria. But what Willem is
people I'm seeing online, a lot of them, especially the ones who are getting involved in it like now, they seem to support both groups. The online supporters that I'm seeing, which is interesting. So before, like, it was just down the line where they all hated each other, but now it seems to be kind of common where you'll see someone posting like, oh, good job ISIS and good job Al-Qaeda. I don't think that they'll ever officially merge. I think it's possible that one could defeat the other, though.
I agree.
So Ryan, can I ask, are these all Sunni Muslims, and are Shiites their main victims?
So if you're looking at the Islamic State, yes, their basic belief system is from a Shia background, from a Sunni background. And there is a hatred of the Shia as much as there is a hatred of the Jews. I mean, you've got to think about it. Although they are both Muslims, the ISIS affiliate kind of individuals don't see the Shia as Muslims at all. They see them as apostates. They see them as kufarim, the same as they see us. So from this point of view, Al-Qaeda and ISIS are clearly Sunni aligned, and that is their fundamental philosophy in life, Wahhabi Islam. And the Shia are seen as the opposite. Obviously, Sunni being a much larger sect and Shia being a much smaller, Shia being more kind of Iranian focused. So the Iranian Hezbollah organizations like that would be the Shia sect. And then ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Boko Haram, Al-Shabab kind of align with the Sunni philosophy.
Howard?
Yes,
please, and please, I'm not trying to be disruptive here. We now need to take care here. Islamic State and Al-Qaeda do not represent the Islamic faith. Let's be clear on this. They do not. Actually, what I see as a misrepresentation based on an extremist narrative that serves violence. So I think we must be careful to say these organizations represent Sunnis. I know a lot of Sunni people that hate them with passion for what they are doing to the Islamic faith. And it's not that I'm trying to be disruptive here, but I just think it's important that we keep the balance here to see these organizations as representing a significant audience of people of faith. They are not representing the Islam community or the people believing in Allah.
I think that's a very important distinction that you make, and maybe we can actually throw the question over to Ryan and say, how big are these movements internationally? How many supporters or active members do they have?
Comparatively, I mean, if you look at the entire population of Muslims in the world, it's like nothing. Like, you can see why other Muslims consider them to be a cult, because they're that far out there. So if you look at polling data, which you can, criticize, but it's not going to be completely, off and worthless. If you look at polling data for support of ISIS, I'm not aware of any poll that showed them reaching 10% in any country. Al-Qaeda, in recent years, I can't think of anything where they even reached 10%. And so they each have a ceiling. I would say Al-Qaeda is more popular than ISIS, but they both are largely rejected, which is why one of the warnings I have is that there's eventually going to be a violent jihadist group that learns from those groups' successes and mistakes, and may have the same beliefs, but they're not going to kill other Muslims. They're going to be more pragmatic and more cast themselves as liberators fighting against extremist Iranian oppression. And that's going to be a much bigger threat. Al-Qaeda and ISIS has done us a favor, in a sense, by shooting themselves in the foot repeatedly, by attacking other Muslims, by acting overly aggressively, and doing all sorts of things that undermine their own support. But the next group and the next generation is not going to make those types of mistakes.
Now, Jasmine, you were speaking about, you and Willem, about what is happening in Mozambique at the moment. And we saw this morning that, in fact, ISIS in Mozambique had overrun one of the port cities in the north of Mozambique. We're going to take a 2-minute look at what's happening in Mozambique and a little bit about what's happening in South Africa. And then we're going to come back and start discussing Mozambique itself and what we're actually seeing in our own country.
Militant group Islamic State is believed to be funding an insurgency in Mozambique's gas-rich Cabo Delgado province. Now, the group has threatened South Africa with grave financial, security and military consequences should it intervene in the war in Mozambique.
Well, yes, ISIS is now present in northern Mozambique. They have actually hijacked the insurgency that began there in 2017, and they want to transform the secular Mozambican government into a Sharia state.
They want the imposition of Sharia law. They want the outlawing of alcohol, cigarettes, music. They want to cut off the hands of thieves. They want to hunt down and execute publicly witches, all the kind of thing that you would expect from the darkest corners of Islamic extremism.
This week's unconfirmed reports say the neighboring countries seeking South Africa's air and naval force to stop military supplies reaching the insurgents from across the Rovuma River.
Our governments are in discussion as to how we might lend support from our own resources as South Africa.
And we know that these groups do not want South Africa to intervene, purely because they know that South Africa is going to bring a fighting power that will really be able to eliminate them or pose a serious threat to their existence. And therefore, in order to prevent that from happening, they have to threaten South Africa not to get involved.
Intelligence Minister Ayanda Dlodlo says State Security Agency is taking the threats made by ISIS to South Africa very seriously.
I can tell you they have cells in most of the southern African countries, including South Africa. And it is just a matter of activating those cells that attacks can start. Many South Africans were recruited to fight with the Islamic State in Syria. The Islamic State also recruited a number of South Africans who remained here. The Tulsis are some of the examples. What this means is not for people to panic in South Africa, or even for the government to panic.
If South Africa takes the necessary measures, need to tighten borders, need to tighten security of infrastructures, critical infrastructures.
Our borders are porous, they walk over, it's easy, they come through the airports, and it's a safe haven for not only international terrorists, but also for organized crime syndicates here. I mean, you can buy a passport, a temporary work permit, anything from the street. It's quite a big industry, it's well worked out, with home affairs, corrupt home affairs involved in that, as well as other law enforcers.
If the whole continent is threatened, South Africa is threatened. If the whole continent faces an increased attack, South Africa equally faces that increased attack, because these groups, as we know, have element in South Africa, have some presence in South Africa, and that's making it very, very dangerous, because if they want to strike, they can strike at any time.
So Jasmine, what on earth is actually happening in Mozambique? Ryan described IS as a business, as a mafia, but they seem to have gone after the oil and gas-rich northern province of Mozambique. What on earth is happening there?
Okay, I'm going to try to capture it in a nutshell, because to capture more than 5 years is impossible. What we have seen in Cabo Delgado is years of discontent, an extremist voice unique to Cabo Delgado, not aligned to ISIS or Al-Qaeda. We have seen a violent trajectory in 2017 at Mozambique Praia. From there, the insurgency has evolved. In 2019, Islamic State made its first claim to credit. At that point, I was thinking, ISIS, you're pushing your luck here, seriously. Today, more than 35 claims to credit, about 4 videos and about 6 photo reports. What we are seeing in Cabo Delgado is insurgency dominated by local discontent and roots that has now been given the ideal opportunity to the Islamic State in an attempt to hijack the narrative, to use it for their propaganda, in projecting them as playing a leadership role. There has been a significant increase of foreigners. They have reached a sophistication we have not seen before, and we have seen a government completely cornered and out of position in terms of how to deal with the situation. And irrespective of their claims, yet today, they are in control. It's not the case. It's the ideal opportunity for the Islamic State. We must not be blinded by that. Are they in charge of the insurgency? No, not yet. But as time goes by, we are going to find an institutionalized footprint in Southern Africa that we have not seen before.
Willem, ISIS in fact threatened the South African government to not get involved. Are we taking those threats seriously, or is this something we're just brushing off? And is our government actually getting involved?
Yes, Howard. I think the Minister of Intelligence actually responded to that, and she said that we do take it seriously, and rightly so. If we look at what happened in a country like Cameroon, for instance, Cameroon has been warned by Boko Haram not to get involved. They did get involved, and even today they are bearing the fruit of that involvement. That is always the challenge, or one of the side effects, if there's a bilateral involvement that takes place. If, for instance, in West Africa, ECOWAS decided to get involved, they would not have targeted Cameroon per se. But you understand the dynamics with that. Now in South Africa is part of SADC. And SADC has got a defense pact. They signed a defense pact where if one country is being attacked, all the other countries will intervene and help. And that is standing and that is binding. So for South Africa to unilaterally get involved in Mozambique may be a serious mistake. SADC has got a rapid standby force that has been trained, they have been equipped, and no funding is a problem, and all the other challenges, but they have got that. That is the instrument that was designed by SADC to do these interventions. So I think the ideal will be for SADC to take the lead. Incidentally, Mozambique is taking the chair of SADC this month, and we will see what's going to happen from there. But SADC, as the regional body, I believe, should move in and deal with the situation. Otherwise, South Africa will open itself and it put a target on its back, and it will reap the consequences accordingly. Because remember what is happening in South Africa. South Africa for many years have been the friend of everybody. That the conditions in South Africa is very conducive for all these different groups to move around and freely operate. They've not been prosecuted. They've not been arrested. There were how many times that they received information about training camps, about cells operating, etc., where the police was actually prevented from following up and arresting these people and investigating these people. So there's a political game that is being played, and we will reap the consequences if we are not careful.
So Willem, are you saying that ISIS is operating in South Africa?
If you look at the different court cases that are currently in front of court, so you look as far back, it's more than 2 years ago now that the Tulsi twins have been arrested, a clear ISIS ideology, etc., But it dates back further. I think it was in 2015, there was a 15-year-old girl that was taken off the plane at the OR Tambo airport, where she was traveling from Cape Town on her way to Turkey to join ISIS in Syria as an ISIS bride. 15 years old, she's been recruited online. These guys have a presence here. If you look at the very, very sad case about the Huma case, as we refer to it in Verulum, the attack on the mosque, and after that, all the different explosive devices that were placed in the Woolworths stores and all the other outlets, as part of a fundraising effort, it seems, by this cell to generate funds for them to operate through extortion. Then we look at the Saunders case, where Del Vecchio and these people have been arrested, clearly ISIS links. So you can just add one and one, and you will see that it's not a matter of is ISIS in South Africa. It's a matter of what is their reach in South Africa.
So we're going to look at the different situations that we've had in South Africa related to this. But can we just go to the point of, are there? I mean, there's lots of talk about ISIS training camps in South Africa. Is it a reality?
The matter of training camps go back for a very long time. Even in I left the police in 2013, and before that, we were investigating. There was projects registered about some training camps in the Karoo and also in the Western Cape, in the Southern Cape as well. There were some reports about training camps in Gauteng. We were prevented from investigating that when I was still in the police. There was political interference and we were stopped from investigating. So we will never know. We never had the opportunity to investigate that. Now we see there are rumors and there are reports of some more training camps. The question is, we don't know because we were not able to investigate that.
Jevon, you look like you had something to say there.
Yeah, I do. And I think we need to define what a training camp is, because we all think of a training camp as some farm out in the middle of nowhere where a whole lot of people go and the instructors and people doing things, etc., and training on training camps in this new world of decentralized terrorism. Could very well be an apartment in a building, the garden at the back of a house, or an individual, a group of guys that get together and go and play paintball and learn tactics and things. Guys that get together and read the ISIS manual on how to, defeat the West, how to make bombs, etc., etc. So I believe that there are training camps, in inverted commas, in South Africa. I believe there are training camps all over the world. I believe there are training camps probably in every city and suburb and town, because it's so easy for a group of people to get together, learn on the internet, get a YouTube video, and learn how to commit acts of terror. So that's something that we need to keep in consideration.
Yeah.
Can I?
Sorry, Jasmine.
I think what Jevon has just said is very important, and I'm glad he has mentioned that point. I want to go back to the point of ISIS in South Africa. And I think Willem has also emphasized that point. ISIS has been present in South Africa. I think I've written my first article in 2016 on their presence. And Howard, I think I was on your show during that time. And yeah, I was being condemned for being alarmist. But the presence of ISIS then, post and during Caliphate phase, and what we are seeing today are also different. If we're going to talk ISIS in South Africa today, we have to define it within our unique context. What is the most and the greatest opportunity for ISIS to find an expanding footprint in South Africa? Not an attack, no. Organized crime, whereby they can use Islamic extremist ideology, where they can spread their propaganda, and where they can secure financing to expand that footprint. Hence my fear that we are so obsessed with sleeper cells, and we don't know if there are sleeper cells. If there are sleeper cells, they should have been arrested by now. Quite frankly, I don't think our security arms are in a position.
Jasmine, what do you mean by a sleeper cell?
Damn good question. What is a sleeper cell? In my understanding, a sleeper cell is a cell that keeps a low profile, that waits for an instruction to go ahead and is on the verge of executing an attack. Do we have that present in South Africa? I haven't seen that as yet. I'm not saying they're not present. I'm not aware of it. Just like Willem has said with the training camps, we are simply not in a position to answer that question. But if I look at Verulum, if I look at Kliprivier and everyone now talking ISIS, I see organized crime activities taking place with profiteering at heart, with individuals clearly linked and clearly associated with the Islamic State. Does that make their activities crime or Islamic State inspired is the question to be answered. I think that it's more crime, but that there could be terror financing at play here to expand their footprint in Southern Africa, not denying it. But I think we need to be very specific when we start talking Islamic State cells.
So my question then is to Willem, Jasmine, and Jevon. Is South African intelligence and the South African government and the South African police on top of all of this? Are they aware of it? What are they, what's happening?
If I can come in there, I think we must understand that the state capture cut very deep. It is extremely deep. People will not believe when they see what is happening at the moment with that. We see that the Minister of Intelligence made some positive moves, which he appointed Mr. Robert McBride now at the SSA. In most of the other cases, we still sit with the people that have been placed there during the state capture. We still sit with this intelligence head in the police that was being appointed by the previous president. Why was he appointed? What was the agenda? We don't know. We can only speculate on that. The challenges that we face, the morale in the intelligence service is at the rock bottom. And the minister said that herself. And they have got a plan now. At least they started now with a plan of action to fill all the vacant posts, to establish a leadership core there, that will come up with the necessary policies and leadership and guidance in order to revive the intelligence fraternity. We don't see that in the police as yet. And that is a major challenge because they are the people that are working in South Africa on crime. They are crime intelligence. And we must not forget that terrorism, an act of terror, has been criminalized by our act. So an act of terror is a criminal offense. And crime intelligence have to have a capacity, they have to look. We are currently working blind. We are like a man walking with a stick because we simply do not have the intelligence to really understand. If we had the intelligence, there would not have been a Verulum incident. If we had the intelligence, there would not have been a Klipspreek incident.
May I come in there, please? Sorry, I'm not taking over. I'm sorry, it's just my passion.
You're welcome to, absolutely.
But I would like to hear after that. I would like to hear what Jevon has to say after you.
But Jasmine, we've lost your camera, so we just can't see you.
I'm busy smoking. Someone complained about me smoking.
So maybe let Jevon speak, and then you can speak when you come back on camera.
Okay.
I mean, I'm sure that Jasmine and Willem are in a much better position to answer this question than I am, other than to say that we have to remember that there may be fundamental problems, and we all understand that there are problems with the police, with the intelligence service, and you know, there are many reasons for that. But there are pockets of excellence within all the services, and there are amazing people that are doing amazing stuff every single day to fight this. I think the biggest issue that they have is the coordination between all of them, and it's not unique to South Africa. That's intelligence services around the world. There's a competition between them. They don't share information. If you look at Brian will probably know 9/11. A lot of the criticism came between FBI and CIA and other intelligence services not sharing information. And that happens here and happens everywhere in the world. So just important to remember that it's not all disaster and doom. There are amazing people working every single day, working very hard, putting their lives on the line to ensure that we as citizens are protected. But there are problems at the same time.
Jevon, I need to agree with you. I need to agree with you. You know, I think if we were not in that position that you are mentioning, if we did not have those people that still want to and can make a difference, we would have been in even bigger trouble. Yes. We need to salute
I would
those
add,
guys.
this is just kind of something I say to anyone any audience that is in law enforcement, is it's hard to grasp how difficult gathering the intelligence and then prosecuting a case is. So when people say, well, there's an ISIS sleeper cell, if that exists, I'm sure the authorities would just go and arrest them. Not really. You have to take into account civil liberties and how you can gather evidence. Even you can't just do it on an assumption. You got to have enough to go to court and think and be very, very confident that you're going to get a guilty verdict. And that's why a lot of the time, even in the United States, you have ISIS type extremists who are arrested not on explicitly terror related charges, even though that's the reason you're arresting them. So it's far more difficult and time consuming than I think most people realize. But I've got to run because I got a doctor's appointment that I wasn't able to move in 10 minutes. So I just want to thank everyone for having me on.
Thank you, Ryan.
For learning
Thanks,
from your
Ryan. Thanks for joining us.
panelists as well. It was great listening to you.
Thank you,
Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you.
Jasmine, you wanted to say something while you were smoking in the dark.
I wasn't smoking, I promise you. No, on a serious note, Howard, I think what Willem has said about, and I want to talk about intelligence specifically. I am not a specialist on crime intelligence, and I'm not a G.I. Jane when it comes to military intelligence. Intelligence has taken a serious knock. Willem is spot on. There were dedicated people, and there still are dedicated people in our intelligence agency, but they're not being allowed the room to do and proceed. The problem with our intelligence service, twofold. One, they have cut off a lot of liaison services. If ever we needed liaison services, it's now. Why am I saying that? Because Ryan has just referred to the complexities of the matter. You're not going to get into the ISIS group with a source. Forget it. There is a conviction here at play that we simply cannot comprehend. They're willing to die for their cause. What you want is access to chat rooms. You want to pick them up. You want to see how they direct the people. Now, Howard, I have spoken to ISIS people on South African soil, and I was in deep trouble for that. But when you talk to them, you understand, and I was involved in de-radicalization programs, the impact of the media jihad on the mindsets of people must not be underestimated. So an intelligence service, greatest access now is the media jihad. And zoom in and try to pick up who's chatting to whom, because to identify an inspired person and profile them is virtually impossible. They differ from case to case. The Sri Lanka bombers, a case in point. The people you least expected it from engage in these inspired attacks. And my concern with South Africa is we keep on comparing. We keep on expecting a knife attack. We keep on expecting a suicide bombing. Forget it. That is not our context we are functioning in. We have a crime, a legion of criminals running around. That's where the opportunity lies.
Thanks. Willem, I want to go back to you because I think you said something enormously important. You said that when there were reports of, in fact, ISIS training camps in South Africa, there was, in fact, a stopping from a political level of investigating that. Explain to us what happened, who is behind this, and what is the motivation that would allow people on a political level to stop trying to conquer ISIS terrorism in South Africa or identify the training camps in South Africa. What is going on there?
Howard, that is the big question. Myself and Martin Iwi, my colleague that was on your video clip that your insert, we wrote on that some 3-4 years ago, where we mentioned the operation and the name of the operation and everything, and we asked the question. We could not get answers to that. The fact of the matter is that that project was salvaged. It was stopped. It was when it was asked why, it was just said it comes from the top. Now, where is the top? Would a police commissioner stop a terrorist investigation for some reason? I don't know. Was it a political decision on that? We don't know, but we can only speculate on that. But fact of the matter is that we were stopped, and many of the other investigations were also interfered with. Some of them from a political interference, some of them from operational interference for different agendas. The fact of the matter is that there seems to be an agenda not to actively pursue these terrorist groups.
Willem, how do things like Pagad fit into the picture here?
Okay, you have to understand every different radical group, every country, every region has got its different and its special dynamics. We see that Pagad actually started off as a sort of a community resistance movement where they stood up the police. They claimed that the police were not doing their job. They were not fulfilling their contract with them, and that crime and also drugs and gangsters were rampant in the area, and they started off with as a peaceful movement. They started off with some picketing and some pressuring and some they gathered around the drug houses and they prevented people from going in and buying and stuff like that. And then they were hijacked. Things went south. They were hijacked by a specific extremist faction, and they started with the bombings. And we all know what the outcome for that was. So fortunately, the people have been arrested. The cases went to court, and those people served their time, and they are at the moment not very prominent. So that was very localized by in the Western Cape area. There were some links to the Eastern Cape and also to Gauteng, but we saw that with Pagad, all the attacks predominantly were in the Western Cape area.
So we're going to go focus on a few of the big issues that hit the news relating to ISIS and South Africa. Straight after we have a new advertiser, and that's a company called Sentient. And we'd like to welcome them on board and thank them so much for sponsoring tonight's webinar. So Danny, let's hear from Sentient.
We all know that feeling when your security alarm wakes you up blaring at 3 a.m. With Sentient, you immediately receive a push notification on your mobile phone with a 12-second video showing you what triggered your security alarm. Sentient empowers you to respond appropriately to threats or to simply go back to bed with peace of mind. Stay in touch with your home. Gain control when you need it, and be there even when you aren't. Sentient. Connect, detect, and protect.
Well, Danny, I think I absolutely need Sentient services in my home. So a huge thank you to Sentient. Lovely to have you on board as an advertiser. Danny, you're going to, in fact, put the Sentient's details into the chat. So if you have any need for their services, absolutely, please put them in. They're in the chat now, and have a look. So guys, we're going to look at a few incidences and come back and actually look at them in a little more detail. Incidences that have hit the press in South Africa where ISIS appears to be involved. And the first thing that we want to look at, there were two British botanists who were wandering through KwaZulu-Natal who were kidnapped and murdered. And that seems to have been the start of what we became aware of, a number of kidnappings that ISIS or ISIS agents seem to have been involved in. Let's look at a short little clip.
There was a heavy police presence at the Verulum Magistrates Court where 3 suspects appeared on charges relating to aggravated robbery and terrorism. The trio is suspected of being involved in the disappearance of a British couple.
Rodney and Rachel Saunders were last seen in the Vryheid area in northern KwaZulu-Natal 2 weeks ago. 2 of the suspects are alleged to have ties to the terror group ISIS.
A crocodile-infested river is being searched by police divers looking for the bodies of a British botanist and his wife who were kidnapped by a gang with links to ISIS, who were harvesting seeds on a hillside on 10th of February when they were snatched as part of an ISIS-inspired plot. Malawian Amapazuka Jackson Musa told detectives he had helped dispose of the murdered plant enthusiasts, whom he had wrapped in their own sleeping bags at the mouth of the river.
A couple of days after the couple went missing, reported to have gone missing, there was that breakthrough in the case when 2 suspects were arrested. That is Saif Aslam Delvecchio and his partner Timo Patel, as well as the 19-year-old who was named as Temba Old. Of course, also raising fears with the news that came out that 2 of the suspects are alleged to have ties to the ISIS or some sort of connections with a terror group ISIS. We did speak to the Hawks today. They have not received any information that could show that there is possibly any threat or any attack.
So, Jasmine, what on earth happened there? Why on earth were these 2 botanists targeted?
Wrong place, wrong time. I think what we are seeing then, I know Jevon is not going to like what I'm saying now. He's going to differ with me. But what, for Timo Patel, let's start off with her. We know that she has been active on chat rooms. We know that there is definitely, and I'm relying on the chat room discussions, there has been contact. Undoubtedly. But the kidnapping itself does not speak to ISIS-inspired kidnappings. What I'm seeing here is an opportunistic attack taking place using their credit cards for financial gain and to get as much out of it as possible. Those 2 individuals I do not see as being killed in the name of the Islamic State, no.
So, Jevon, do you believe that, in fact, that was pure criminality and it just so happened that some of the criminals were linked to ISIS?
So I differ slightly to Jasmine, and we agree on a lot of things, by the way. But I believe that you can't separate the 2, and that the criminal side of what all these groups are doing is to further the cause, further the ideology, to find the resources and the funding to do what they need to do to further the ideology. Now, if you have to look at some of the people that traveled from all around the world to Syria, you can't say that all of them were dedicated Islamists that wanted to follow the path. Many of them were just in love with violence, wanted to justify committing acts of violence, and this allowed them to do it. So I do believe that the individuals up here, all the cells, including Timo Patel, and I agree that it wasn't a coordinated event, that I think Patel and Delbicho happened to stumble upon them, happened to identify that they had finances available. But I also believe that all these individuals subscribe to a set of rules that does not comply with the laws of the land, which means that they can do whatever they want to because it doesn't apply to them. So if they want something and they can justify it in the furthering of the cause of Islamic State, they'll take it, they'll murder, they'll kill, they'll steal, they'll do whatever they need to do. I do believe the end goal was to fund. The first thing they did was buy camping gear. I mean, that's very common. They said that they wanted to use the money to fund training camps, to fund other individuals to travel elsewhere to learn and commit acts of terror and join other groups. So I think from a point of view, there was a criminality, but there was also an ideology behind that criminality. And I think that's true for most of the groups.
So Willem, in your view, was this criminality? Was it lone wolf? Was it ISIS? Where do you think this specific attack actually sits?
Okay, I hear what the two respondents said, but one thing that might clear that up a bit is there is a related case in the city of Rotterdam in the Netherlands, where a person was arrested, and because he wanted to use the credit card particulars and credit card of Mrs. Saunders to buy bitcoins to transfer money towards ISIS. He has been convicted, and that is on the court of law, on the court papers. So, if it were only a criminal, I think I agree with Jasmine. It was opportunistic. They were at the wrong place at the wrong time, and they happened to have money. But the objective of this act was to raise funding to further the purposes of ISIS. And we saw the same modus operandi now with the Kliprivier case, where there was also an abduction, and they extorted the people in order to raise money to fund their activities. Like Jevon said, they bought camping equipment. They wanted to fund their operations and how they operate with this money. So yes, they use criminal means to do that, but I believe maybe the objective was to further the cause of their ideological beliefs.
So Willem, you mentioned the issue of kidnapping, and we've seen that in fact the Kliprivier incident, which we'll get into in a minute, was really exposed because of a kidnapping. Are we seeing a lot of kidnappings that we're just not hearing about in the general media at the moment?
We will never know. But what I can tell you is that with the Huma case that was thrown out of court, they also found someone in the cellar when they approached the house and they arrested the people. They found someone that's been kidnapped and was kept in the cellar of that house as well. So that is a modus operandi that these people are using. They might use it for criminal use, but it seems to me that that is what they do as one of the means for them to fund their operations.
And can I say that's true throughout Africa and probably the Middle East. Any place that maybe doesn't have such a strong rule of law, kidnapping is a primary source of funding for terrorism. Mm-hmm. And if you look at South Africa, many of the people that are being kidnapped are not high, well-known businessmen. They're wealthy businessmen that maybe have cash businesses where it's easy for them to pay money across. It's quick hit financing for furthering the ideology.
That's true.
I saw Jasmine was nodding her head as well. Jasmine, are there a lot of kidnappings taking place that we're not hearing about?
It's the most underreported crime in South Africa at this point in time. And that I've heard from reliable sources. We don't know what is being reflected in official criminal statistics is but the tip of the iceberg in terms of kidnappings. But
how do they keep it quiet?
You must ask that question to the police service. I think in many cases it's not being reported. In many cases, there's simply not a trust in the police service anymore. In other cases, I guess it's a question of turning a blind eye because there is simply no capacity to do anything about it. I don't know the reasons. I'm speculating. SAPS will have to answer that question in a factual manner. But I've heard from inside Willem's domain that this is a serious issue in South Africa that's not gaining the attention it should.
Peter, if I can...
Yeah.
Sure, Willem.
Sorry, if I can come in there, let me use an example of an incident in Uganda. Now, very interesting about that, because that incident also has some linkages to Cabo Delgado in northern Mozambique. The ADF is a terrorist group, or I see the UN tend to refer to them as a militant group, but they are operating in Uganda as well as in the northeastern areas of DRC. And what happened was they abducted a 19-year-old girl of quite fairly affluent parents, and they specifically instructed them that they will kill her if they call the police and inform the police. But the family informed the police, and they managed to contact with this terrorist group, and they arranged for a drop of the money. But they were actually following them, and they could see that the police was following them. So they did not pick up the money. And the next day, they sent a little cardboard box with 2 of the fingers of the girl with a videotape in it, while they were cutting, filming it while they were cutting, and while they were cutting the fingers. And they told them, "We told you not to inform the police." And what happened then, fortunately, there's one of my trusted colleagues in Uganda told me this story. She said that then what happened was, one of the police officers listening to this video said, "Hey, but that is a guy from the ADF from this mosque in Kampala that we investigated before. I recognize his voice." They went for him, they picked him up, he took them to the house where they kept her, and they arrested the whole cell there, but for 4 people of the cell. 3 of those people were arrested in Cabo Delgado. Wow. They are currently in custody in Mozambique, and they were part of the first group, the first counter-offensive. They were arrested there. The third one, or the fourth one, accidentally, if you go and look at on the internet, because they told me that this guy was extradited from South Africa. So I went and I looked and I saw, but this guy was extradited from South Africa because he was part of organized crime here in South Africa, and Uganda requested his extradition, and he was extradited. No mention of any extremist links. That guy is currently in jail in Kampala.
Because we're running short of time, let's move straight along and let's look at an incident that, Willem, you've mentioned a few times, and that is the mosque attack in Verulum.
Suspects have attacked a mosque in Verulum in northern KwaZulu-Natal. A first responder saying 1 person has died while another 2 are in a critical condition.
The incident took place this afternoon at 2, where 3 unknown suspects entered the mosque and they stepped the 3 worshippers that were inside the mosque. And there are certain rooms that were also satellites at the mosque, which includes the kitchen as well as the library.
The brazenness of people entering a place of worship like that and coming in and then proceeding to attack these people in such a gruesome way. People are asking whether this is some kind of terrorist attack, and I think everyone needs to be careful until we have the facts and we've established exactly what's going on.
The details around this case, and even things like revealing the names and the nationalities, have been prohibited by the court. The state saying that the case is still sensitive because another ID parade needs to be held to link these accused to yet another kidnapping.
Okay, so this is a very interesting case. What happened and why was this an attack on Muslims?
We look at the attack and we see that from the outset, it was mentioned to them that it was a Shia mosque, and then they said that the attackers actually were not Shias. That came out in the start, in the beginning, and also we look at, if you look at the Huma cell, you look at the devices that what they found in the stores, and you look at the device is very similar to the devices that were found there. The modus of the construction of the device, the signature of the bomb that was built there is very much in the same way than it was there. So the bomb, it was actually a bit of an embarrassment for the police, because they only discovered that bomb after the minister has left, so that was not a very good exercise. And we also see that the attacks were on these people, and then later on it was linked in the court papers with the Huma case and so on. So there we can only describe it maybe to the rift between the different factions, or the different factions in Islam, your Shia and your Muslim attacks. We know that they are at war in many countries. So that is so on the one end, but also we understand that the community petitioned the director of public prosecution. We saw it in the newspapers, in the Vrije Weekblad carried a story on that last week, where they are going to, they petitioned the DPP to actually reinstate the cases and actually do a better job than they did with the previous one.
So there are two things I want to know. Is firstly the connection, the actual connection between the Woolworths bombings and this, and then why did these guys get off?
Okay, we have to refer to the court papers itself and the judgment by the magistrate. It turned out that it seems that the investigation did not go as fast as it was supposed to be, maybe because of support. They had to rely on a lot of technology to extract the information from the different cell phones, and there seemed to have been a challenge. But also, what happened was there was an extremely experienced state advocate that was at the helm doing the prosecution there. For some dubious reason, the DPP office decided to remove her from the case, and then they appointed a fairly inexperienced prosecutor to take over the case. And if we can see, we look at the court papers, we see that in the 4 months, the more than 4 months that he actually was prosecuting this case, he made 4 phone calls. That was his total involvement with that case. Only 4 phone calls.
So are you talking about political interference? What are we talking about?
We can't say that. We can't say that for sure, but it doesn't make sense on a prominent case like this to take away and to remove this fairly experienced advocate and replace her with a junior. 1 and 1 is not 2 there. So I think the DPP is taking this serious. I understand also that the minister is taking it seriously, and that we believe that justice will be served for the community, because at the end of the day, it's not about terrorism. It's not about the community per se, but it's about the victims. Those victims, justice must be served to them as well, and we have to ensure that as a country.
Peter, my sense is if you ask Jasmine that question, you're going to get a very straight answer. Jasmine, who interfered and why? Hold on. Just unmute yourself.
Maybe she did that on purpose.
I didn't.
So, Jasmine, who interfered and why?
Howard, how can you do this, man? How many people are watching? Come on. No, let's get serious. I mean, Willem is right. I mean, who interfered into that court case? We will never know. But like Willem has said, to remove that person must have come from a senior position, must have been a person with certain political allegiances, and must have been there must have been some political influence in doing this. Now, the question that you are asking is why? Do we have a scene where we're trying to hide the whole Siashuni scene and Verulum under the carpet and admit that there are serious tensions that have spiraled into violence? I don't know. But we have seen a government policy for many years putting and using this tactic by ignoring and allowing certain activities on home soil in the belief that this will protect them against terrorism. Let me take you back to the World Cup event. Do you know how much money it cost us via Bangladeshis to prevent an Al-Qaeda attended bombing during that event? It never hit the papers, but we had to pay massive amounts of money just to make sure the event takes place without an incident. Sorry, that opportunity is not available anymore. We have to start facing as government the reality of certain activities beyond violent terrorism in South Africa in terms of financing, in terms of organized crime, how it links to extremism, and how it's playing out on South African soil. We cannot ignore and hide behind our foreign policy is fine. We have geographical proximity. Mozambique is on our doorstep. We cannot ignore this anymore.
Jasmine, are you saying that we bribed our way out of a terrorist attack during the Soccer World Cup in South Africa?
Bribe is, look, I'm not a legal expert, so in terms of calling it a bribe, I don't know. All I know is that there was plans by Al-Qaeda. They were threats, let me rather say, threats made, and the Bangladeshi community was used as a contact, individuals within the Bangladeshi community to pay a huge sum of money to send them the message, refrain from any attempt to execute such a bombing.
By whom? Who put the money up?
That is a good question. I guess we will never, ever know. But that there has been some extent of government involvement in terms of trying to prevent, and we had to protect that event at all costs for the sake of South Africa. But who put the money up, who made the payment? It is like the Mali case where suddenly no ransom was paid to get the South African back into South Africa. A ransom was paid. Matter of fact, I don't know why we are running from the harsh realities when we are dealing with these type of cases. The public has to be informed.
Exactly, I agree.
So, Jevon, I think many people know the name Tulsi, the Tulsi twins. We're going to watch a short video about the Tulsi twins. It's something that affects our community very directly, and then we're going to come back and chat about that.
The United States has added South African twin brothers Tony Lee and Brandon Lee Tulsi to its terror blacklist today.
Twin brothers are suspected of having planned attacks on the U.S. Embassy and buildings owned by Jewish people. The twins and Fatima and Ibrahim Patel have appeared in court on charges ranging from conspiracy to firearms offences. Britain and the U.S. warned in June of a high threat of attacks in South Africa.
Lawyers for the brothers argued that the arrest was unlawful, as police only had a search warrant. But the Johannesburg Magistrates Court ruled otherwise.
Evidence that the state believes links the Tulsi brothers to acts of terror confiscated from their computers. Here, the armed brothers wearing suicide vests. And then images of what's believed to be a homemade bomb. Also a post on how to make explosive devices and instructions on how to carry out acts of terror. it emerged that one of the twins, Tony Lee, was also planning a suicide attack. They planned to travel to Syria through Turkey to join ISIS. Further evidence shows that Tony Lee allegedly opened a bank account and a member of Islamic State deposited monies to fund their trip.
3 years and over 40 delays later, and the trial of the Tulsi twins is far from starting. The matter has now been at the High Court for over a year, with pre-trial conferences between state and defense. The 26-year-olds remain behind bars as they await for their day in court.
Jevon, who were they after? What were the targets that they were actually after?
So the straight answer is that they were looking at numerous targets. They were apparently, according to reports, instructed to look at a number of embassies, the British Embassy, the UK Embassy, the French Embassy. But they were also specifically, and a lot of the targets that they were asked to look at were Jewish. So affluent Jewish individuals, people like Zapiro, who had drawn a poster or a picture of the Prophet Muhammad. So that wasn't enjoyed at all. There were a couple of other social media, like Jewish people, that were quite prevalent on social media, probably pro-Israel. So those were targeted. And then obviously the most concerning was the one that came out in the newspaper, which was King David, one of our schools. So a major Jewish school. And a couple of others. They were also looking at some Jewish events. They were looking at the Zionist Federation. So they had a whole list of targets that apparently they were looking at. From what we understand, some of them they were very serious about. And we obviously took the threat very seriously. This is not something that you can kind of ignore and pretend that that's not a serious issue.
But now, Jevon, these weren't lone wolves. These weren't two kids who decided to do this by themselves. There were, in fact, there was payments made from ISIS internationally into bank accounts in order for ISIS to bankroll their activities and actually take part in these attacks.
I think that's a very big question, because when you look at it, which comes first, the chicken or the egg? And when you look at something like Mozambique, you know, it's not that ISIS went to Mozambique and spoke to them and said, you guys need to kind of join us and carry out attacks. ISIS watched them and watched what they were doing. And when they became worthy of putting ISIS's name on it, then ISIS claimed responsibility. So I think it's not so simple that there are definitely recruiters out there. There are definitely people that are looking for vulnerable individuals to recruit into the Islamic State. I think these two were self-radicalized. I think the group of individuals that they were involved with self-radicalized. And to tell you the truth, they probably weren't the most radical of the group. There were other individuals there that were much more radical than them. But they were the ones that kind of were pushed to carry out the plans. They were the ones that were put forward as the front runners on this attack, on this plan of theirs. So yeah, I mean, I think that they probably did speak to people. They probably did get funding from someone, but they showed an indication first that they were willing to, that they were radical enough, and that they were prepared to carry out attacks. And I think then Islamic State may have, or individuals from Islamic State may have kind of touched base with them and provided some funding.
Jasmine, it's been 4 years since their arrest and they haven't appeared in court yet. What on earth is happening?
I think the answer is quite simple. And maybe Willem will differ with me here. I may be oversimplifying the legal process. But there's one aspect of the Tulsi case we must not skip. It is an entrapment case. That means they were being set up by most likely as CIA or FBI agents because they love doing it. And according to our law, entrapment information cannot be used as evidence in a court of law, which means that incitement has driven from inspiration to radicalization. How valid is that process within a court of law? And I think our government is trapped in that situation of how to proceed the case. When we were stopped at Syria, at Oliver Tambo International, and I keep on asking this question, why did government not step in with some sort of de-radicalization program to assist them? Like you say, 4 years later in a prison, prisons have proven itself to be a hotbed of radicalization for grievances against what is happening to individuals. And I'm afraid the Tulsi case are paying the price for a government failure at that point in time, and is paying the price of a prosecution stumbling along.
Willem, what do you think?
Okay, I hear what Jasmine say. We must understand when you work with a terrorism case and prosecution of terrorism cases. Some years ago, we had the so-called Boeramag trial. So from the day that they went to trial until the day they were found guilty, it took 10 years. And it was not so much the blunders of the prosecution, even though there were some. The majority of the delays in that case were because of motions brought in by the defendants themselves when they wanted to apply for bail. If you go and look at it, I think there were some 42 different judges that they had to approach for these hearings, because one judge cannot hear them twice. So that was one of the reasons that that took so long. We see with the Tulsi case, they are playing the same game. They applied the time after time after time for bail, and then they bring this motion, then they bring that motion. Yes, I think their mistakes have been made, but according to my information, there is a solid case against them, and once it goes to court, finally goes to court, they are very confident that there will be a conviction. So that is just the information to my available to me. So every case is different. In the Huma case, we could see that was to a great extent the inaction and nonchalant action of the prosecution, where and we must understand that, according to my information, also in the Huma case, even though there were some delays and some challenges from the police, the investigating side of the Huma's case, they built a very solid case against those people, according to the people I spoke to. With the Del Vecchio case also, they got a solid case. I do not follow that case so closely, so I cannot tell you exactly what is going on there, but I believe that in the past 2 weeks, there was once again an application for bail by one of the defendants in the Del Vecchio case. And remember, when something like that happens, it puts everything on hold. Everything has to stop, and then they first has to hear that motion, and once that verdict comes, they can decide to go on, or depending on the outcome of that verdict. So it's a complex matter.
Yeah. One certainly gets the sense that, in fact, the Tulsis don't want to appear in court, or someone doesn't want the Tulsis to appear in court, and there have been deliberate attempts to make sure that the case does not go to trial. And it's usually, one gets a sense that it's coming from the Tulsi side, or those people representing the Tulsi side.
That has been the case in the recent months.
I want to take a moment and just talk about, Jevon, you're with the CSO, the Community Security Organization. And there is one organization within our community that looks after us when we go to shul, when we go to communal events, when you go to the Jewish day schools, wherever you go, there are hundreds and hundreds of people looking after the community at all times. And those are volunteers and professional staff and highly trained individuals. But in essence, our community is completely and utterly dependent for security on the CSO. And you guys have done the most remarkable job in protecting our community and looking after all of us. I know your motto is to protect, in fact, not just Jewish life, but the Jewish way of life. But you've allowed us, in the face of all that we've seen, in the face of the fact that we know that people like the Tulsis were targeting Jewish schools, were targeting Jewish synagogues, were targeting Jewish leaders in our community. It is the CSO that we, in fact, owe thanks to for making sure that we can continue as a Jewish community in South Africa. And we would be misplaced tonight if we didn't allow people the opportunity to, in fact, either make a donation to you or pledge some money to you, because our safety, our security has been completely dependent on those people within our community willing to take a bullet for their fellow members of the community. So we're actually going to put on the screen right now, Danny, we want to give people an opportunity to put on the screen to make a donation to the CSO. There are going to be 3 ways that you can make a donation to the CSO tonight. Number 1, you'll see the CSO banking details on the screen now. Take out your cell phone, take a photograph of this, make a deposit into Standard Bank to the CSO. We're also using the Jewish Report's Wallet Doc account. You can see the details at the bottom of this. Using the Jewish Report's Wallet Doc account so we can collect money for the CSO and transfer it through to the CSO. Obviously, all of your donations tonight will be subject to a Section 18A tax deduction. So in fact, the receiver of revenue will help protect our community by you making this donation. So we have the credit card details there. We have the CSO's banking details. If you have your cell phone with you, take a picture of that. You can also just open your camera and point it at the screen, and it will open up a web page that will allow you to make a donation. So we're going to take just a few seconds to allow you to do that. But there is a third way that we're going to do as well, and that is many people don't have their cell phones with them or find this a little too complicated. We, in another 10 seconds, are going to put up a poll. And you can pledge some money to the CSO, and we will contact you tomorrow and the next day and allow you to honor your pledge to the CSO. But this is an opportunity for everyone to, in fact, show some gratitude to the CSO for the amazing and remarkable work they do to keep us all safe. So, Danny, can I ask you, please, put up the CSO poll? If not, I'll put up the CSO poll. And we're going to just take a moment now and allow people the opportunity to in fact, pledge some money through to the CSO and to show some gratitude. Jevon, you run an amazing professional team and teams of volunteers. You protect hundreds of institutions or multiple institutions throughout South Africa.
Thank you. I mean, an amazing surprise, and thank you so much. And we really appreciate your support and the support of our community. It's on the back of our community and their ongoing support that we're able to do what we're able to do.
So in fact, it's an amazing combination of both professional staff as well as volunteers. But wherever you go, to every incident, people are in communications with each other. People actually come out to protect our own. And there isn't a synagogue in South Africa, there isn't a Jewish institution in South Africa that isn't being protected. And what we've in fact done tonight is we asked people to register in which city they were in. So if you registered, for example, that you're in Cape Town, we'll make sure that your donation in fact gets attributed through to the CSO in Cape Town. If you're in Pretoria, we'll make sure that your donation gets attributed to the CSO in Pretoria. This is a communal thing with many, many people participating. So we're just enormously grateful to everyone. We're going to end the poll in another 10 seconds. So if you would like to pledge some money through to the CSO, this is absolutely the right moment to do so right now. And we're going to stop it immediately. We're going to end polling over there. Thank you to everyone who made a donation. We really appreciate it. And we want to go on very quickly because we are running short of time. And we want to very quickly look at the incidents of something called the White Widow. And then we'll come back for maybe just one question on the White Widow.
Samantha Luthwaite, aka the White Widow, here on a fake passport seized by police in a raid 2 years ago. She's the world's most wanted female terror suspect. Once married to London 7/7 suicide bomber Jermaine Lindsay, suspect of involvement in terror attacks in Kenya dating back to 2011. On the run from Interpol.
Leaked documents also showed that Samantha Luthwaite arrived in South Africa in July 2008, but was deported to the United Kingdom almost a year later. Luthwaite returned to South Africa using a fake passport in September 2009. The location of the target was not clear. However, the terrorists mentioned a Jewish center in Cape Town during discussions.
Mayfair residents don't recall anyone matching her description, but we still had a second address to investigate. This man recalls Webb, whom he described as the white Muslim lady living in the corner house. Most startled, though, by the revelation are the newest occupants of the house that the White Widow once lived in.
Is there any evidence at this point, specific evidence, that she was involved in the Westgate Mall attack?
They don't know. They have a description of a white woman that one witness said was among the attackers, and they know that she is working with Al-Shabab, and they are now looking to see, is she among the dead? Did they mistake her as a victim, or did she have nothing to do with it?
They arrived February 2011 and were anything but normal. Luthwaite would spend many hours in the local mall and the Nakamat department store. From her balcony, she could see directly to the shopping center that she was spying on. This is a middle-class neighborhood where a white woman like her really wouldn't look out of place. The mall, known locally as Junction Mall, is popular, particularly with affluent expats, just like its larger companion mall, Westgate, targeted by terrorists last month. In that attack, these Islamist terrorist gunmen let victims go if they were Muslim. Where she is now, no one knows. She fled the apartment in a hurry, August 2011.
Kenyan authorities have been looking for Luthwaite since late 2011, when they pounced on a suspected terrorist group in Mombasa, shortly after she allegedly entered the country on a forged South African passport in the name of Natalie Faye Webb.
Fascinating. I mean, how does somebody like this get into the country, have a South African passport, and stay here? Could she still be here? What do you think?
May I come in there? One, let's just put Samantha Luthwaite in the right context. She has never been a prominent fighter within Al-Shabab. She has never been at the forefront of any planning of executing any attacks. Let's make it clear. She has become the market face that she never asked actually to be. But, and this is always a but, that she could come into South Africa with her links and associations using a passport is of grave concern, because if she could do it, how many others have already done it and is already busy doing it as we sit here. But the obsession with Samantha is an obsession by the MI6, because Samantha embarrassed them. She made a fool of them by playing them out and by escaping, and most of the information on her is liaison intelligence information for the MI6 to get her and feel satisfied that they at last got her. She is not as prominent as that is being portrayed in the media.
Okay. Willem, you wanted to say something?
Okay, yeah. The last part of the clip, they showed the flat in Mombasa where she stayed. They raided the flat, and they found a passport there. They missed her by seconds. They found a lot of other items there, but also a lot of explosives and bomb making material. And there was another British citizen called Jermaine Grant that was arrested with her. And incidentally, a few months ago, he was actually found guilty of the possession of explosives and wanted to build explosive devices. he was not found guilty on any terror-related incidents, but mainly because, on my perspective, that the Kenyan police botched the investigation there. I work in Kenya a lot. I deal with these people a lot, with the police there, and they did make mistakes and also did make a lot of sort of very good things that they also do. So one thing about Samantha Leawaite is that she's a survivor, and she's a very smart operator in terms that MI6 could not catch her. They tried here in South Africa, they couldn't manage, and also in Kenya they couldn't manage. There was some information that she was hiding out in a border town after this, where she's very good. She's a good operator, and she's also a very good manipulator of people. And she was being guarded by corrupt police officials, and she was driven around by corrupt military officials before she fled into Somalia. So she's a very smart operator, even though she's not very prominent in terms of any terror attacks. Behind the scenes, she was a mobilizer, she was an enabler, maybe she was a planner, we don't know. But wherever she went, things were happening, and that is basically what I can say about her.
And I think it's important to say that she inspired many people because of her background, because of her history. So where she sits in the structure of Al-Shabab or any other organization is less important than the fact that she was turned into an inspiration, maybe through the marketing machine, whatever it was, and she inspired many others. And I think we'll see over time, many of the people and individuals, and specifically the females that we are dealing with today in South Africa, Timo Patel and others, very well may have been inspired by an individual like Samantha.
Sure, that's
fine. Willem, is it possible that she's still in South Africa or back in South Africa?
Howard, wait. Sorry for coming in here. Wait now, hold on to our horses here. To say that Samantha has inspired many people, that she has inspired people, yes. But most of the inspiration that comes from Samantha, ironically, comes from the Western media and how the Western media has portrayed her role. Willem is right. She's a survivor. She is. And she can manipulate. But then women tends to be good at that. That's why we are good operatives at the end of the day. But we are overplaying her position here. And that is my concern. She has never, ever featured that prominently within Al-Shabab, even in its intelligence outfit, even as a recruitment agent. She has never featured. What gave her a marketing edge is the UK incident and being linked to the bombing that has taken place via her relationship. And from there, the issue just spiraled. Samantha Leawaite is what she is because of the Western media.
Is she here still in South Africa?
It wouldn't surprise me.
Willem, do you think she could be in South Africa?
The answer is we don't know.
Jevon, do you know?
I go with the two experts. Anything's possible. I would have
there were some rumors that she surfaced some in East Bloc countries, and they tried to divert that. Indications when I spoke to some of my friends in Kenya was that she is currently in Somalia, and that they also use her as an inspiration and also a coordinator with the female supporters there and the females that come from the recruits that come in from Kenya.
So for our last segment tonight, we're going to look at the most recent incident, and that's the Kliprivier incident. So if people don't know about it, we're going to show a very short video, and then we're going to come back and talk about it.
Police have seized numerous weapons, ISIS training manuals, and the so-called ISIS Black Standard. during a raid linked to a kidnapping, according to reports. The suspects kidnap businessmen for ransom, demanding it to be paid in Bitcoin in order to fund Islamic extremist operations in Africa.
The man was kidnapped outside his business on 2 July, and a video ransom demand was sent to his family.
He's been bound, he's naked. He's had 2 guns pointed to his head.
He pleads with the viewer to pay a 3 million rand ransom in Bitcoin or he will be killed.
This is standard ISIS modus operandi. They do these kind of activities in order to gather funds, in order to further advance their expansion.
The crime intelligence-led operation investigating the kidnapping led police to a small holding in Kliprivier in the Val, where they arrested 5 suspects in connection with the kidnapping.
But what they found there was a number of firearms, AK-47, we've got hunting rifles as well as an Uzi submachine gun, several handguns, ISIS training manuals, that's what we're told, and also an ISIS flag. It's a racket that was being run by an ISIS cell in order to gather funds in order to fund its operations in Africa and locally. They do believe that these suspects may be linked to other cases of kidnapping and ransom and possibly murder.
The new year started tragically when 2 people were killed and 6 others wounded in a shooting in Melville, Johannesburg. Witnesses say a person left a popular restaurant on 7th Avenue after an altercation, and that shots were later fired at partygoers at the venue from a moving vehicle.
It's a really tragic morning here in Melville on 7th Avenue. At about 1 o'clock this morning, we understand there was a fight that ensued, and then soon after that there was a black BMW SUV that drove past and then fired shots, and that's where the bullets or the shots were fired.
So Willem, help us join all of the dots here. We have Woolworths bombings that are connected through to the mosque attack in Verulum. One of the suspects of Verulum is arrested when they raid Kliprivier. The vehicle used in the attacks in Mary Fitzgerald Square and Melville on New Year's Eve is found in Kliprivier. Does this mean that there is one single cell and they've now cracked that cell? And what do we mean by the news reports that these are Pakistani intelligence-trained individuals?
Howard, what we know at the moment is what we read in the newspapers, what's been leaked by some of the people close to the case, but also by the statement of the National Commissioner of Police, where he specifically linked them to possible international radical organizations. Okay, just one thing there. The person that is linked with the Huma case has not been arrested. He's on the run, according to the newspaper reports. So he's not been arrested as yet. So if you look at the signature of the bombings, but you also look at the modus operandi of these people, how they operate. We saw, as earlier we discussed, that they use extortion as a way and a means of obtaining funds and generating funds for them. They use kidnappings to generate funds. They want the payment in bitcoins. They went and they bought bitcoins in the Netherlands in order to move this money around and to make it easy for them to move those money around. The statement there about the Pakistanis, I cannot comment on that because it is only speculations. There's no further proof of that, and it's a very sensitive issue. But it raises a red flag if a foreign body or intelligence agency has been fingered in or mentioned in the training of operatives that are operating within South Africa. So that raises the alarm. Is it one cell? I don't think so. Maybe there are more cells. maybe you've got a Durban cell and you've got a Pretoria or a Gauteng cell. You might have more cells that we don't know about. The fact of the matter is, until we've got proper intelligence and our intelligence is up to standard, we are not going to pick up many of these things, and many of these things are going to fall through the cracks. So what we know is what's been reported and what's been leaked, and it is enough to raise quite a red flag for us. What is going on in South Africa? You know, if you look at Mozambique, for how many years have they denied that they got a terrorism problem? They said it was thugs, it was armed thugs, it was this. Then later on they mentioned it was a insurgency. And now that things have escalated so far that these groups have become so strong and so embedded and so organized, now they want to come up with a counter-terrorism offensive and admit that we've got a terrorism problem. You know, there are the instruments, the international instruments on terrorism and how to deal with terrorism that you have to bring in there. Maybe that scared them. South Africa is doing the same. We are denying that we have a terrorism problem. There's no official comment on that there might be a challenge for us and that we have to prepare for that. And once again, we are not raising the alarm. We are not, there's no time to panic. But I think it is time maybe for South Africa to stand up and face up and take ownership of the challenges that we're facing and put the necessary steps in place. We need the political will to counter this, and that is the bottom line.
Jasmine, what else do we know that maybe hasn't been in the newspapers yet? What do you know about the Pakistani intelligence involvement in what we're seeing out of Kliprivier?
If I talk about the Pakistanis, Howard, would you allow me maybe to move a bit away from Kliprivier? Sure. I had the privilege of interacting with a contact in Karachi. Kidnappings in South Africa is being run by, not all of them, but some of them, by Pakistanis. Let's be clear on that. The Pakistani intelligence service is one of the most active on South African home soil. And the whole objective is funding back into Pakistan for groups that's being linked to extremism. A lot of youth goes to Pakistan, come back with that extremist mindset, but the projection is always outside. It's always towards Pakistan in opposing government and government initiatives. The problem with the Kliprivier is what Willem has raised. I do have the names and the photos of those being arrested, and I've checked each and every one of them except the one that has escaped, and I could not pick up very specific links to an international terror organization. Our key is in the person that has escaped, I think, to make the link. But Howard, let's go back to Melville. Let's go back to those two. Sorry, is my time over?
No. I'm very curious what a drive-by shooting in Melville has to do with any of this.
That is my problem. If those were purely, and I've said it earlier on, and I'm repeating myself, but I'm a blonde, I'm allowed to do it. If those were purely ISIS-inspired attacks, you would not have seen a drive-by shooting. No way in hell it would have happened. If they would not have stand on a bridge and shoot at people. That is not how it works in a purely Islamic State-inspired environment. So we must be careful here to take and say those were ISIS-inspired. I see criminal networks competing and having revenge and grudges. But with that, Jevon, before you hammer me into the ground, and before that there are individuals in these cells, like Willem has said, that can be linked to extremist organization and using Bitcoin. And I was quoted in the Daily Maverick. The most likely, with the information at hand, is we are looking at terror financing. And that, for me, is what we have. We can only work with the facts at hand. I want to know who is the person that we are looking for, because the moment we have that name, I think a lot of questions will be answered.
So, Jevon, in how much danger are we?
Jevon, be nice on me.
Yes, Jasmine. I believe that we are in a lot of danger, and I believe that this lone wolf concept is not something that we can take lightly at all. There are most definitely, whether it is ISIS or Al-Qaeda or any other, or right-wing for that matter, inspired individuals that they've been sitting at home for the last 5 months. They have been frustrated. They've been absorbing mounds and mounds of propaganda and information on the internet. I think that there are individuals that are very, very prepared to get up and go and carry out a lone wolf attack against a Jewish community, a shopping center, wherever. I think it's very, very important. I mean, I do believe that the New Year's, and Jasmine and I have spoken about this, that the New Year's attack was a dry run to test the system. And if you look at Mozambique, once again, coming back and trying to compare the two, and maybe like a regional kind of Islamic State flavor, no one claimed responsibility. Islamic State didn't claim responsibility. There were just these attacks that happened and grew and grew and grew. And eventually, when it became Islamic State worthy, then Islamic State stepped in and took responsibility. And I believe to a certain degree, it could very well be the same thing here. There are cells, they are maybe inspired, maybe they have got some kind of contact with the Islamic State, but they are building these networks, they are interacting with each other, they are sharing ideas, they are testing the waters, they are seeing what the reaction is. And when it comes down to we're ready to do this, you are released to carry out an attack, or we as individuals choose to do so, I think Islamic State will step forward and take responsibility for some of these attacks. Right now, I think it's the beginning of it. And I think they're testing the water and they're preparing for something later down the line. I believe there's a big threat to our community in South Africa as well.
So what should the government, what should we be doing about this? What can we do?
I think that question has always been asked. What can we do? We can't do much, can we? We can improve our security. We can call on intelligence. We can call on this police and crime intelligence to improve their capacity, to improve their lives and services. But Willem has mentioned this earlier. Willem, I'm supporting you way too much tonight. But Willem has said it. There must be a political will to acknowledge, and Jevon, you know how long we've been talking this, for how many years, about the reality of terrorism in South Africa. And how many articles you can go back on. We cannot ignore this reality. The threat is real. And ironically, it is government weakness that is creating an ever-growing gap for international, forget the Islamic State, international terror groups, be it from Pakistan, be it from wherever, to step in and exploit it. And what is the door? I say it again, organized crime syndicates. In Mozambique, we've got Cabo Delgado. That's the door. We are not Cabo Delgado. We are South Africa, and we have our own dynamics that is driving people. An inspired attack, just take a few minutes on Telegram, a few minutes to make it happen, or make that person cross the threshold for them to decide enough is enough. And that is our...
What should government do? What should they be doing for us?
Government should revisit their counterterrorism strategy, number one. I've listened to an interview this week and I nearly got a heart attack, where a person said, we must recruit sources, we must infiltrate. And I wanted to say to this person, you are living in the 1970s. Wake up. ISIS is relying on media jihad. That is their weakness, ironically. We need an operational center 24/7 monitoring these chat rooms. If we don't have the capacity, we must work, be it with whatever intelligence service, the UK, France, be it Russia, be it China, no matter who, ingraining cooperation, accessing their capacity. It's time for the intelligence service to get away from there. It's secret. It's national security. Start talking to people. We have specialists in this country. There sits Jevon. There sits Willem. Let's start talking and cooperating and grabbing hands and putting ideas on the table on how to counter your community cooperation. And here I'm not only referring to Muslim communities. Jevon mentioned right-wing extremism. Your Afrikaner communities. We as communities need to stand together and not allow their propaganda to create divisions. Because who will know best that a person is changing its behavior? The community, not a source, the community. And this information is freely available.
Willem, I think the last word of the evening comes to you. What should government be doing?
Your first step starts with, as Jasmine mentioned once again, it starts with a political will. If we don't have a political will to tackle this challenge, we're not going to get the resources, we're not going to get the backing, we're not going to get the finances, we're not going to get anything on the ground that we need to counter this offensive. That is in the first place. In the second place, we need leadership. We need leadership in all our different institutions that are countering it. And it starts with intelligence. As I mentioned earlier, we saw that there's a step in the right direction with the appointment of the Director General of at the SSA, Mr. McBride. They started filling up all the posts that have been vacant for many years. Why? Why was there no drive to take active leadership and to deal with that? Because once again, a country that works without intelligence is a country that's going to lose, because you cannot plan, you cannot preempt, and it will take a lot of challenges in order to play catch up. We look at Kenya with the Westgate attack. If you look at the reports there, exactly a year before the time, they received an intelligence report that actually said that it was going to be an attack that is going to be on a shopping mall in Nairobi. Then about 5-6 months later, a second report came, and that report said it's going to be a Mumbai-like attack, and it's going to be on a partially owned Jewish shopping mall. How many are they? They had all this intelligence, and what did they do? There was no leadership. They did not act on the intelligence, and they did not prevent the attack. And we all know what the outcome was with that. So secondly, as Jasmine also said, and I'm really supporting it too much tonight, we have to I'm a big advocate of community involvement and community policing. And if the community do not take hands, and now I'm not only talking about the Jewish or the Christian or the Muslim, it is everybody around. Within the Islamic community, all of them are not radical. And they are people that also want to see the right thing and also want a good land in the country for their children and a good future for their children. So it is a matter of that everybody must take hand. And then the time is now for government and for the security forces to restore the faith of the public in the handling of the Kliprivier case. They've got an ample opportunity to do that. In the handling and the prosecution of the Tulsi case, they can demonstrate to the public that they have the means, they have the ways to counter this threat effectively.
So we've been watched by many, many thousands of people tonight, both on Zoom as well as on YouTube, and we would love to know what you've thought. Has tonight frightened you? Has the tonight informed you? Has tonight motivated you to go out and try help? We'd love it if you went into either the Zoom chat section or the YouTube chat section and left us a message. We'd love to know what you thought about tonight. Are you terrified? Are you hopeful? Is the advice that we've heard tonight from literally the country and some of the world experts really something that you can grab hold of to change things, to make sure we have a better future for tomorrow? I want to thank Peter Cross-Maunder, the editor of the Jewish Report. You have helped to put together the most remarkable panel. And I think the important thing is that we gathered tonight 4 people, 1 international, 3 local, but we gathered together people who would not mince words, who would actually speak the truth when we asked them the questions. And I think there's been so much information that people didn't know that has come out tonight. I'm shocked by some of the information, Willem, that you've told us about some of the political involvement in trying to squash investigations into terror in this country. Jasmine, I'm shocked at the stories that you've told about the World Cup and the way that we, in fact, prevented, through the use of money, we prevented terrorism attacks during the World Cup. I'm shocked at all of that. But this is a world that I think the rest of us don't really have access to in the same way that Jevon, yourself, and Jasmine, and Willem, and Ryan internationally deal with on a day-by-day basis. But it's people like you who really deal with this, who are willing to tell the truth and to speak openly to power and tell power what should be done. It is people like you who will ultimately keep us safe in this entire process. So, Peter, a huge thank you to you for putting together this panel. Jevon, you know you have the absolute respect of our community, and in a few minutes, if you haven't donated to the CSO and you'd like to make a donation to the CSO, we're going to put up our poll again and allow people to make a donation if you haven't yet done so. Jasmine, you have been absolutely remarkable. You have battled load shedding tonight, but you have told us the absolute unadulterated truth, just what we needed to hear. Willem, your years of experience just comes absolutely shining through in when you tell us these stories. It's been the most informative, remarkable experience to listen to really true experts in this field. So a huge thank you to all of you. Peter, turn on your microphone, take a bow, and also please use the chat section just to thank everyone for their participation tonight. Peter, you're still on mute. What did you think of tonight, Peter?
I thought it was fascinating, and I must say there was a time I thought maybe we didn't have enough people, but actually the people we have on our panel tonight were just remarkable, and I just want to say thank you to all of you, and I hope that our viewers really got something special out of this event.
So Danny Cato, you've been behind the scenes. A huge thank you to you, playing many of the adverts and things tonight. So a huge thank you to you. Can I ask you just to launch a poll one more time, just in case anyone would still like to make a donation to the CSO? Let them have the opportunity to, in fact, make sure that we can reward the CSO and help the CSO go ahead with the amazing, remarkable work that, in fact, they do. So to all of you, we'll keep this open for another few minutes. But to everyone who participated tonight, we'll see you again on Saturday night. Tonight's been a heavy discussion, but on Saturday night, we're going to be talking about high fashion, maybe high fashion and fashion misdemeanors. And we have some of the country's top designers. Jasmine, are you going to be participating on Saturday?
I want to look like a fashion model, please.
You already look at it like a fashion model. Just look at all that bling that you're busy wearing tonight.
I look at Megan and I'm thinking, God, you were so lazy when you created me.
But absolutely. So tune in again on Saturday night, 8 o'clock on Saturday night. We have some of the country's top designers. We've got some of the country's top brands. And we're going to, at that point in time, be talking about great fashion and how we can go out in this world post-COVID and still look respectable and get out of our pajama bottoms. So, Danny Kadon, are you wearing bottoms tonight or only the tops?
Don't stand up.
Fully dressed for the occasion. What can I say?
Okay, just remember to turn off your camera before you stand up. So,
I promise.
Jasmine, you started in the darkness, so let's see where that lands. So let's see what the lads are up. Willem, Danny is going to send you a letter of authority to say you can get home because you ran off in the darkness to do this from your office. Danny is going to send you a letter of authority from us that will allow you to get home during curfew. So a huge thank you to all of you for participating. Really appreciate it. We're going to turn off our cameras, but we're going to leave the chat on for another minute or two, just in case you want to send us a message. Good night. We'll see you on Saturday evening. Thank you all for participating.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. I love you, Jevon.
Thanks, Jasmine.
Willem, hello. How are you? Let me just open up my email quickly. Then can I essential services letter? Okay. Okay, I got that. Yeah. Let me just see. Okay. Come. Okay, no problem. Thanks a lot, and thanks for this evening. It was great. Okay. Okay, right.